Good evening. I will call to order the Milton Public Schools School Committee for the purpose of a school choice open public hearing. We are here today to discuss the policy of school choice. The school committee votes annually on school choice procedure for the Milton Public Schools. Currently, Milton is not a school choice district. This is a state requirement that all school committees must do each year. And I will defer to the superintendent here for a quick presentation on choice.
Thank you very much. I would ask, bless you, Dr. Carroll, to bring up the PowerPoint that we have for the public to see on school choice dated May 20, 2026. Each year, every district, every public school district has to, its school committee has to vote on whether they want to take part in school choice. It has a very unique history of something that districts do in the western part of the state, where if school districts have not regionalized, they're actually supporting each other by sharing students. It tends to be less prevalent in the eastern part of the state, where some of our cities and towns are a little bit more populated. People decide to just keep their district not a school choice district. So the background of this law is it is Chapter 76, Section 12B of the Mass General Laws details the conditions of inter-district school choice. The Milton School Policy is JFBB regarding school choice, if you want to look that up in our policy book. The inter-district school choice program allows parent and guardian to enroll their child in a school district that is not in the child's home district. And again, this is not within the district like Cunningham District, Tucker District, Colleypark, and Glover. This is Weymouth, Braintree, Milton, Westwood, etc. Prior to declaring themselves as a school choice district with the state, the school district would determine how many seats would be available to be offered and at what grades they would be available. On the next slide, each year the Milton School Committee must vote on whether or not to participate in school choice, just like all other public school districts across the Commonwealth. This vote must be submitted by June 1 to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, along with the minutes to justify that we've actually had this conversation in public. If the Milton School Committee voted to participate in school choice, a student enrolled in the public schools through this program would have the right to remain in the system until graduation. Historically, the Milton School Committee has voted not to participate in the inter-district school choice program. So just a little background now that we've gone through the slides. I'm assuming that past votes of the Milton School Committee have been not to take part because our enrollment is a concern, our class size is a concern. We have just been invited into the Mass Building Authority project process to build a new school in order to alleviate the enrollment concerns we have, especially at our elementary school, as we're trying to create more space to serve our students. And I would recommend that we continue to vote to not accept school choice. This is something that some districts do in order to increase their enrollment and also increase funding. There was a headline the other night that a school district did not vote to take on school choice. And I think because they've had budget situations, they were hoping that the school committee did want school choice because those students come with a percentage of the per pupil expenditure. It's not even the full per pupil expenditure. So an example would be a per pupil expenditure from DESE is about, I'll use a round number of $18,000 per student. You really only get about $12,000 from DESE in the exchange of taking a student from another district or inviting other students. I think it's a wonderful program if you want to be able to open your district up and you have space in order to make sure that your classes are full and you can invite other families in, but that just seems to be not the case in Milton. And so the district gets to vote each year. We'll give see the information after tonight's vote. My recommendation would not to be take part solely on space and overcrowding at our elementary level and at our high school level.
Great. The committee will have time to discuss this kind of within the general agenda, but for the purpose of this hearing, this is a public hearing, so I would ask if anybody in the audience wishes to speak about school choice, they could raise their hand. There's nobody in the room with us here, so is there anyone online?
No hands raised online.
Okay. All right. Well, to be clear, Without a specific no vote, the system becomes a choice district. Vote limits Milton's school population to those students who live in the town. However, Milton residents may attend other choice districts even if we vote against choice. The vote does not limit or impede any other agreements that exist in collective bargaining agreements. There are still no hands. And I would take a motion to adjourn the school choice open public hearing.
So moved.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. All in favor? And hearing is closed. I will now call to order the regular meeting of the Milton School Committee. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. We'll move to the second item of business, which is to approve tonight's agenda. Everybody can take a look and let me know if there's anything on the agenda, especially related to the subcommittees that we need to remove. Hearing none, I will assume the agenda is approved and we will move forward with item number 3, which is public comment. In accordance with school committee policy, we welcome members of the community to share their perspective with us during public comment. We have set aside 15 minutes for this part of the meeting, and individuals may speak for up to 3 minutes each. While the school committee does not respond directly to public comment, there may be opportunities for members to address issues that are raised over the course of the meeting when relevant topics are on our agenda. We strive to engage in respectful discourse during our meetings and ask that public comment speakers keep that in mind. Speakers should introduce themselves with their address for the record. At this time, if anybody would like to speak for public comment, please raise your hand. There's still no one in the room with us.
No hands online.
No hands online, then we will conclude public comment and move on to number 4, the superintendent's report, part 1.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to welcome student rep Olivia Wilson. Olivia is a junior at Milton High School. Last week I saw Olivia stroll up to the stage at Scholastic Honors Night several times, collecting some well-deserved awards. So we welcome her as part of our student reps. Unfortunately, Spencer Futrell could not join us tonight, as he is in the MHS concert that had to be rescheduled because of last night's power outage, and the concert is taking place tonight. So we wish Spencer and his colleagues well at the concert tonight, and welcome Olivia.
Good to see you all again. I'm just going to give some brief updates of the goings on at the high school. We'll start with sort of the less fun stuff, which was that today and yesterday were the math MCAS days for our sophomore students. And tomorrow actually will conclude about 3 weeks of AP testing. So we will be done with that very soon. And then the bio MCAS is going to be coming up June 2nd. So that's for our freshmen. When we were talking about what to say today, we had a whole section on the seniors because this is like their last hurrah. So their last day is May 29th, which is going to be next Friday. Then our prom is going to be the day after that on the 30th. And then they're gonna have their own separate award night where they'll do all of their like teacher recognitions and then recognizing single students, and that's gonna happen on June 2nd. And then they'll have their graduation on June 7th, which is a Sunday. So that'll be really nice. And then they have a senior lunch, and we're gonna be having a boosters banquet as well. And then there'll also be the MHS varsity athletes banquet to support all of our students that have sort of contributed to our school community in that way. And then also the seniors every year they walk through the elementary schools that they've attended and get to kind of say hello to their old teachers and see the next generation of kids that are going to be coming through. So that's a nice fun thing that they'll have coming up as well. And yeah, that's basically June of our school. So yeah.
So Olivia, how does it feel to be a junior/senior when the seniors leave and getting ready for the summer of going into your senior year?
Well, there's a lot more parking, so that's good. It's now I'm the king of the school when they leave, so that's fun. But this summer is, for juniors, if you know a junior in your life, this summer is kind of crazy with all the college stuff getting ready, and visiting schools and writing essays and everything, but there's also like that light at the end of the tunnel that is becoming more and more visible as the days go by, so like my last AP exam is tomorrow, and then I can finally like kind of relax, so that'll be good for us.
Any other questions for Olivia?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Olivia.
Thank you for taking the time tonight. We appreciate it.
Great, we will now to the chair's report. The first item is an executive session. I will go ahead and make a motion. So the motion will be to go into executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, specifically an open meeting law complaint. And to review the executive session minutes of April 29th, 2026, which was held under Section 21A6. We will be returning to open session at the conclusion of the executive session. Is there a second? It's an executive session, so we have to do a roll call vote. Nathan? Yes. Stevie?
Yes.
Val?
Yes.
Lizzie?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
I am a yes. We are adjourned into executive session, and again, we will be returning to open session. Good evening. We are back from executive session, and I will now make a motion to release approve and release the minutes from executive session meeting on April 29th, 2026. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Again, this will be a roll call vote. Stevie?
Yes.
Yep. Val?
Yes.
Lizzie?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
And I am a yes. So those executive session minutes have been approved to be released. They will be posted. And we will talk more about this item or the subject around that session, which is La Beret, here a little bit later. But for now, we will move forward with the school choice recommendation. So this is our opportunity for members to ask any questions, have any discussion, and ultimately make a decision, a vote about Milton school choice status for next year. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, I would take a motion.
I'll make a motion to I make a motion that Milton not be a school choice district for the FY27 school year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ty goes to the number.
Yes.
All right, does not have to be a roll call vote. So all in favor? It's unanimous. So that is the school committee choice recommendation, and you'll pass that over to the state to let them know. So we'll meet that obligation. Great. Next up, the school committee, subcommittee, and advisory committees. So that is attached. I sent that out. I'll just frame it again, tried to balance membership across based on interest and experience and kind of what people had done previously. Have not heard, nobody's been banging down my door, super mad about the committee assignment, so I assume it's all right, but if there are any kind of lingering questions about committee assignments. All right, well, then what I would do is I will make a motion, I would accept a motion to kind of accept these committee assignments as they are listed in that Google Doc, and I would just name again also for the committee assignments, one thing that, I'm pulling it up, sorry. If you scroll towards the bottom, the devolved responsibilities of vendor warrants, we would be making Nathan the assigner of the vendor warrant. We anticipate Nathan becoming the new finance chair. We'll make that official in our next meeting, or our first meeting of the finance committee. And again, that is a devolved responsibility that Nathan will now get to take on. So just want to make sure I highlight that for everybody.
And so these committee assignments will go into effect now. I mean, I know we've always had a little bit of like a transition time, and the key subcommittees of finance and policy continue to be cross-posted. So for example, for the policy upcoming policy meeting, I could still come to it, even if I'm not technically a voting member of policy.
Yes.
So do you mind if I just, does anybody have any questions about that? And because Stevie, I know that you knew, we post all subcommittee meetings for all school committee members to attend, just in case folks want to come. That way, if we didn't do it that way, school committee members would not be able to come to the meeting if they had time to go to that meeting. It would be a breaking of the open meeting law. So we just post everything that way. That way we don't have that worry at any time.
Yeah, and we're talking specifically for kind of the three primary
ones,
subcommittees. Now will be four with the new superintendent search committee.
Correct.
I did just want to take a moment to publicly talk about the superintendent search committee. So that is a new committee we are forming for the purpose of finding the next superintendent for Milton Public Schools. That search committee, very excited to have Lizzie, Nathan, and Stevie on that. Again, all members will be involved in that search, but we appreciate kind of the work that the three of you will be doing to kind of organize us as a committee, bring back kind of plans and ideas on how we do this as effective as possible and engage the public and find the best possible person. So thank y'all for taking that on. That will be a lot of work. It doesn't go unnoticed that y'all are agreeing to do this. And I think there was broad interest from all members, even those that aren't on it, to be a part of that, because I think everybody recognizes how important that work will be in the upcoming year. So thank y'all for everybody kind of raising their hand and trying to participate in that process. If there are no other questions or comments, then again, I would take a motion to accept these subcommittee assignments for the 2026-2027 school committee session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. All in favor? It's unanimous. All right. We're getting a lot done tonight. Thank you all so much. Yeah.
Would these be posted at any point somewhere so that if people needed to reach out to committee members?
Yeah, I think we have a list on our website. Obviously, the town committees, the town manages that and they'll update that. So I'll send this out over to the town administrator so we can update the website. And I think we have our committee assignments also on the website,
I think so.
which again, we'll just update with the current membership.
I'll ask Shelley to do that tomorrow.
Great, that's good. Town meeting updates. All of you were there, so mostly for the public, that we had town meeting since our last school committee meeting. The really one warrant article that was directly related to the school committee was the school budget, and that vote was approved overwhelmingly. So we appreciate all the members of the town meeting, their engagement and their support, as well as select board, warrant committee, everybody else who kind of made that happen. That town meeting was only 3 nights, so thank you, Moderator Dylan, for making that as efficient as we can. Any other comments, things people want to raise about town meeting?
Mark and John, I just thought you all did a great job in your presentation and responding to community input and questions. So just thank you for representing the work. It was excellent.
Yeah, ditto.
Great. Next up is the summer meeting schedule. So everybody, most people have kind of submitted their stuff in the meeting materials, right? We have the June, July, August calendars. I know there's a lot of conflict, especially in August with several members, and Val's taking an amazing trip. We're all really mad and jealous about. So kind of 2 things coming out of that, I think, and we can get this with, I'll talk about this in the upcoming meeting, but based upon kind of our conflicts in later July and at the beginning of August, I think our governance retreat, which last year we did at the very beginning of August, we want to pull forward and do at our June 17th meeting. So we still had that kind of on the docket for as a normal school committee meeting. Right now, not seeming, obviously that's like close to the last day of school. It's not seeming like there will be a lot of pressing items to actually need to have a full school committee meeting. So instead, the plan would be to pivot that to a governance meeting, assuming everybody is available. We think that's probably an easier time to make sure all members can participate in that arena that it's the summer. I do think again, if you haven't filled in the calendar, and I haven't just double checked that everybody put it in, please do, just because we may need to have other meetings over the summer based upon the input from the superintendent search committee on if there's things that they want to update us, run by us, need our approval on as it relates to finding a search firm and something like that. We want to have the ability to kind of know when we can get members together. And Val, there may just be times where Unfortunately, your amazing trip, we might have to meet without you, but we'll obviously let you know. And if you want to zoom in from across the world, we'd love to have you.
Keep me posted.
The
We try my best.
joys of a hybrid life. You can't even get away from it.
We have some contracts to vote to,
Mhm.
probably after June 17th.
Yeah, so there'll be things that will pop up, but we might do most of that virtually. Okay. That is all I had for summer meeting schedule, unless anybody had any comments or questions.
So we're meeting, we have the last sort of regular meeting is June 3rd.
Yes. And June 3rd is the last regular meeting, and then June 17th, we will change to be a governance meeting. And we'll do that. I haven't talked to John and Anna about where we want to hold it, but we've in the past held it in the superintendent's conference. So that's probably where we'll hold it.
Same time,
Yeah,
likely,
I
okay.
think so. Well, we can also talk about that offline if we want to pull it up an hour to have a dinner together or something like that.
That's what we
Yeah,
typically
do it at
meet
like
earlier,
6,
right?
yeah. Would everybody be available to meet at 6 on
Seems
the
like it.
17th?
Sports are over by then, so just get freedom, flexible.
Okay. Well, if some changes you can't, let me know, but otherwise we'll kind of move forward with that assumption. Thank you very much. That is it for the chair's report, and we'll send it back over to Superintendent's report part 2.
Thank you very much. Very happy tonight for Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Professional Development, Carla Cosa, to talk about what good work happened across the district this year related to curriculum and professional development specifically. Carla had entered the district in August, just in time for our leadership meeting with the full leadership team, and started right off the bat assembling the full leadership team at the high school on a very hot day for about a 7-hour meeting connected to and looking at data that we wanted to review the strengths and weaknesses as seen through the data and through the lens of our leadership and curriculum folks. Came up with a set of priorities that the leadership team wanted to advance and move through the district this year. And then that work was continued throughout the school year by Carla. So I want to thank her for jumping right in and then executing significantly important and well-received professional development by the staff. And also want to thank her, and I think the entire teaching community would say, asking the teachers for what they need, listening to what they say, soliciting feedback, and then publishing the feedback rawly right back out to the staff. This is what everybody's saying. This is the strengths. Here are some of the things we'd like to see differently, and here's what we want next time, and using that data to inform all of our professional development. So a lot of teacher voice, a lot of transparency, and a lot of good work happened this year. So I'll let Carla go into that in detail. And Carla, thank you very much.
Thank you.
To get the slides on. Awesome. So thank you. Really excited to be able to talk with you tonight about this year. It's been a great one in a lot of ways. So I'm just going to focus on professional development tonight, just to give you a sense of what we did this year. So our agenda for tonight, I'm going to start with the context for the 25-26 school year. Then for those who may be listening to our recording in the future or listening today, what is professional development in an educational setting? Understanding what guides professional development in a school setting, and then what we did, how we did, and then what our plans are next year. Next slide. So the context. So the context is the first and foremost, Superintendent Phelan and I entered the year as interim 1-year team. And as we all know, there were multiple prior years of change in leadership. And so the roles that we were in and knowing that, our primary goal was to stabilize the district and provide and focus on the fundamentals with our teaching and educator staff. Develop the 5 priorities, as Superintendent Phelan mentioned, with our full leadership team in the beginning of the year, in an exercise that we all talked about different priorities, and where the mass of priorities seem to be on our discussions is what we focused on. We created a through line to ensure that those 5 priorities are understood and could gain some traction. And we worked on building a sense of team for our leadership and our educators. And we did school walkthroughs on a regular basis and used some feedback from that to understand strengths and needs across the district. Next slide. In an educational setting, the focus for professional development is on educator needs for areas of learning and growth. That's the bottom line. And it is important to align that with the district priorities so you can dig in and make some headway there. And we want to find ways to meet the needs of educators in different roles, with, of course, the ultimate goal having some type of impact on, positive impact on student outcomes. Next slide. So the picture you see here is from November 4th. This was the elementary team, which I'm going to give you some more information about that later. And this is Superintendent Phelan and myself in front of this team doing some calibration on the priorities. The recap on the priorities are here. The first priority was to provide all students with robust and intentional Tier 1 instruction. 2 was increase the use of data to inform instruction. 3, increase rigor through high expectations and high supports in the classroom. 4, take strategic action steps to ensure underperforming students achieve at grade level. And 5, continue to cultivate classroom and school climate and culture to lower absenteeism. So those, again, were the priorities that the leadership team came up with. And this session that you see in the photo is really about calibration. And I'll explain that a little bit more. Next slide. So what I mean by through line is to ensure that our priorities are real and lived and not just something on a piece of paper somewhere. And to build capacity, they were infused into multiple work streams. So the first work stream that we really wanted to ensure was done with fidelity was our evaluation process. And in a former district that I have worked in, we created plug and play goals, and I'll explain what that means in a minute. And those are really helpful for educators who have to create SMART goals every year. And if you can create goals for them, write the goals in SMART format, and they want to use it, they can. And it's a way to, again, support the district priorities. And so many of our educators decided to use that option. And then through the observations of our evaluators and the feedback is a way to continually talk about those 5 priorities. At our elementary and secondary leadership meetings throughout the entire year, we continue to talk about the priorities, and all of our work was geared in the direction of our priorities. The weekly staff newsletter, every week I put a micro learning on some topic that relates to the 5 priorities that teachers can access. It's a bite-sized professional development. They can watch a video, they can read something short, just to kind of keep their brain moving in the priorities. I find Edutopia is a great resource for just really bite-sized learning. And so every week I put something out there and I tie it to a priority and make sure it's explicit which priority it connects to. And then at the building level, principals, when they put out newsletters, to the staff will often mention opportunities to think about the 5 priorities. And again, in blue at the bottom, you see professional development. So that is another big bucket that we use in our through line to help educators feel connected and informed and ready to work on the priorities together. I wanted to shout out a special thanks to our PD planning team, a group of volunteers who meet bi-weekly to think about professional development and help take that feedback and turn it into action. And that is Amy Tom, Brian Selig, Kat Young, Bill Fish, Nok Tran, Danielle Wetmore, Zena Hamada, and Holly Guncannon. Next slide. So my philosophy is that what's good for kids is also good for adults in a lot of ways. And we've all sat in professional development, and sometimes professional development hits and sometimes it doesn't. In order to have it hit, I believe that it needs to be personalized. It needs to be timely. It should be immediately usable. It should be informed by the feedback of the people that you're giving that professional development to. It should be transparent. We should be able to sharing that feedback, whatever you say. I'd like you to know what others are saying. And it should be consistent, its approach, so there's no surprises and people feel like there's a structure that makes sense. Next slide. So for this year, I found the key success factors that really helped have a positive experience for all of our educators was, again, that planned PD time had an explicit focus. We shared our approach with the staff from the very beginning and let them know we will have a clear focus. Your input will guide our work. we will share and respond to your feedback. We assessed a baseline understanding that was really important to kind of understand where people were coming from. Do they know? What do they not know? We gathered feedback with an exit ticket after each professional development day. We shared that feedback with staff and with follow-up action steps. And we used the leadership team analysis of all that feedback to help inform the work as well. Next slide. So just kind of in terms of the consistency of approach, this is what the educators could expect every time they would meet. Opening slides from central office. So if they were building based, the principal would, they all had the same slide. Every educator would see the same thing that provide context and alignment to our priorities. Every time there was a PD day, there would be an exit ticket. We would act on that input and suggestions wherever we could. The full day professional developments were with colleagues across schools, and the half day PD time was segmented into 50-minute sessions with 50 minutes for principal time, 50 minutes for curriculum and department time, and then 50 minutes for independent time. So that was the approach every time. Professional development by the numbers. So just to give folks a sense of what it looked like throughout the year, we have about 420 Unit A staff members. We had 2 full days this past year and 3 half days. On the full days, we had district-wide development, and on the half days, it was building-based. On November 4th, we had 62 workshops offered by educators. 47 were academically focused, 15 were self-care and connection. March 3rd, we have 56 workshops, 42 academic and 14 self-care and connection. And the average ticket response rate was 32%, which in the world of response rate is pretty good, pretty solid. And I hope you had a chance to look at some of the catalogs, which I hyperlinked here. And if you didn't, feel free at some point. You can also look at all of the data that was provided by educators in the newsletters. I think you all have some, or can get that weekly newsletter that goes to staff, and all of that feedback is in there if you want to take a look. Next slide, PD by date. So here's how it went this year. And I'll start with that image on the top right. So I put this slide up with our educators in the beginning of the year because I believe it, that sometimes the greatest PD are the teachers down the hall. We have a wealth of talent and expertise in our district. And I find and have found over the years that educators really like to hear from their fellow educators. And they're receptive in a lot of ways than someone coming from the outside to listen to their colleagues. And so that was a foundational element, and I got a lot of feedback about that and appreciation around that. So I think they felt good about learning from each other. So October 8th was an early release date, and on that day, it was a building day, so MCAS data analysis was happening, and then the building-based and or targeted PD happened on those days. And what I mean by that is job-alike folks. So your special educators would meet together, your PT/OT might meet together, your classroom teachers might meet together by grade. So everyone had something to be doing on those days, and that's what I mean by targeted. November 4th was a full day. The elementary folks were at Pierce and the secondary folks were at the high school. And as I mentioned earlier, we had 40+ workshops, all facilitated by our educators with a host of different topics. And again, take a look at that hyperlink to really get a sense of what was offered on those days. And another aspect of professional development days that I have found helpful over the years is to really have that focus on the academic side of things, but also give colleagues the opportunity to do something fun together, to connect, to build team, and sort of like a what I need block for students, we give that to educators. And if they didn't want to do something collectively, they could do something on their own, but it's really just respecting their time and giving them time to connect to each other. On November 17th and December 10, we had group work, and we asked all of our educators to focus on priority 4 and to take strategic action steps to ensure underperforming students achieve at grade level and to think about that together. And they had a response, some thinking to do, and a response mechanism to give feedback on what are the gaps that currently exist in Milton Public Schools in terms of priority 4. So that was really informative to us to think about what that feedback was. January 14th was an early release day, and it was building based and targeted by role. And then March 3rd was a full day, same model as November 4th, but all of our staff was together at the high school, which I thought was terrific. Next slide. So at our first meeting in November, if you haven't used Mentimedia before, it's a live polling, and we did live polling. with our teachers. This represents the elementary folks in the morning that John and I met with. And we wanted to know how they felt, what they thought about tier 1 instruction. And so the question was, I feel confident that I understand what robust tier 1 instruction should look like in my classroom or office. And that data was important to us. It was great to see 71 folks thought definitely, but 88 mostly, sort of, and then no clue. So that was interesting information for us to be thinking about. The next slide that I asked them for, next slide there, thank you, Lizzie. Answer this question for us educators. I have a full toolbox of actions I can use to support underperforming students. And as you can see there, 150 folks said I could use more. So that gave us immediate feedback to know where we should focus our time and energy. And again, that was live polling with the elementary folks on November 4th. Next slide. This was an interesting dialogue where we asked, what does rigor look like in your classroom? And this was again with live polling with the elementary teachers on November 4th. And this is just a snapshot of the feedback because we had 162 responses live while we were talking to them. And we had a great conversation. If you look at just that little part, you see the word engage or engagement. And then we had a conversation about just because you're engaged, does that mean it's rigorous? So it was an interesting discussion. Next slide. This was again a very similar feedback loop where we asked, list 3 data sources you use to inform your work. And so again, doing this type of live polling not only gives us information, it gives all of the educators information about what their colleagues are thinking about. How do we define these things? And so this was critical early feedback to help the superintendent and I think about, and the leadership team think about what we might need to do with any gaps out there. Next slide. This, you guys have seen this before, a kind of word wall, emoji wall, where we checked in. This was in the March 3rd PD day when we had the entire staff together. And I find this is important feedback. How are people feeling in March? Tired was the biggest word, but as you look around, the emojis are generally happy and the words energized, excited, relaxed. There's a little bit of meh there. But this is good information. How are we doing in March after, several months together as a new team? And that was good information for me. Next slide. So what do we do with the feedback? We share all of it with the staff. Google form feedback doc, which I'll show you in a second, and any summaries that I put together of the feedback, I gave right back to them so they could really understand where they all were and what was working and what wasn't, and just get a shared understanding of how the professional development was going and some of the issues that educators brought up. You could kind of see, oh, I was thinking about that, or that's an issue I didn't even think of. So I find that's really helpful, and it builds trust with educators that there's nothing being hidden here. You're part of the process, and so your feedback, it's necessary for you to hear it and see it. We then review and analyze all of that feedback with full leadership and the PD planning committee. And then from there, we determine future action steps. So based on some of the feedback from the November 4th day, we amended the format of the second PD day. We tried to create more tools and training for tier 1. We want to review and evolve some systems, and I'll talk about this in a little while, the student support team model. And we got a lot of feedback around vertical and horizontal curriculum alignment, which will be deferred to the next incoming central office team. Next slide. This is just a sample, a little snapshot of the feedback output that's shared with staff so they can see every comment, every rating. Again, we had a 32% response rate. We had a rating of 1 through 5, 1 being this was terrible, 5 being this is great. I ask what is useful from what you learned today, what is not useful. That helps me understand, okay, we don't want to do that again. And then a comment bank, letting folks kind of just tell us what they're thinking. So again, all of this information, if you want to drill into this and have a sense of it, go back to those weekly staff newsletters that came to your email, and Stevie, I can get those to you if you want them. If you can't go backwards in time, I can get those to you. But I think it's important to take a look because it will give you a real sense of the temperature in the district and how people are feeling about things. Next slide. So I pulled out some comments about what worked. There were many comments, generally speaking, that were positive. And I think people felt like when I see words like relevant, when I see refreshing, when I see I love this PD day, That really makes me feel like we're on the right track. Thanks for recognizing the value of educators simply being together to reflect, brainstorm, and communicate and grow their practice. I want to hear that. And great tool to use in the classroom, great, thumbs up. We're getting somewhere and people are getting what they need. So we had a lot of great feedback for that. And of course, there are opportunities for improvement. So the next set of quotes tell us maybe we need to change some things, or maybe we need to focus on something differently. So looking for more specific strategies in supporting struggling learners. Okay, we need to develop that and provide that. Hoping we can continue some conversations from today and follow up, and we did that. So these kinds of comments just help us think more thoroughly around, okay, they're asking for something, let's see if we can deliver. And then the next slide. So this is just a sampling of pictures of those days. And I will tell you, I felt the energy in all of those rooms was positive. Everyone was learning. There was just a great energy in the buildings, and I was thrilled with the opportunity to see all of this in action and teachers feeling like they were getting something really positive and powerful and impactful to their learning. And then the next slide is the self-care and connection. So you see there, we got a walking group, we have a snowshoeing group, Pliables in town donated some great smoothies to the yoga group. So lots of fun activities. That's a mahjong, very hot. That was hard to get into. People wanted me to widen that up more. But that was a great option for folks, and they really enjoyed that connection time, and the feedback on that was great too. So what are our next steps? We need to distill all the feedback from the school year 25-26 with our leadership team. Been doing that all along, but we want to make sure that we kind of think about that thoroughly, and then when we meet for our leadership retreat in the fall, we'll use all of that to think through what our next steps are for next year. We are currently working on a professional development roadmap that we would like to give to staff before they leave for the year. They have a sense of what's coming. And I found as an educator for many years, I just like to plan. I got my calendar. I like to know what's going to come my way. And so that's a goal of ours, is to give that to all educators. It's important to note there are no half days next year. So a lot of the kind of building-based work that happened in half days this year will need to happen on full days. So we'll have to think carefully around how we continue to move forward with the 5 priorities, but also kind of get things done that buildings need to get done. You all know that there's an elementary focus on literacy, so there'll be a big part of the professional development for the elementary folks. And bottom line is we want to execute a meaningful professional development roadmap that is attuned to educator needs. That's always the goal. And so we're excited to think through that. My smaller team will be thinking about that, and we'll deliver that roadmap in draft form to them by the end of June. And that is the end of my presentation. What questions do you have?
I just want to, I just want to start from commenting on how strategic that you have been with the group of educators, planning things ahead of time and getting the questions that they are curious to know more about, and executing all those professional development sections and inviting colleagues of the educators to run those sessions. I think those are very great strategies that you have been doing this year with the MPS school. You mentioned one thing about observation, like class observations. Do we document our observation notes?
We do.
Okay. Do we have a centralized location to store all notes for the educators?
Yes.
To go with, like, each student have their own portfolio, but each teacher should have their own
do.
portfolio as well.
Yep, they do.
Awesome, awesome.
So the state has its evaluation system. Every school in the state has the same system and standards to follow for educators. And I can give you a lot of information about that if that'd be helpful to you. But yes, that was one of our goals this year, is to make sure that evaluation system was used with fidelity.
Yeah.
And so people are sick of me reminding them of things, but I'm doing it anyway. That those observations go into the online portfolio for educators. They talk about those observations and eventually end of year evaluations. There needs to be a dialogue, an ongoing dialogue around professional practice.
Yep.
And so the system kind of holds that information, but the real the metal meets the road, is that the phrase? The really good stuff happens in the conversation.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, awesome. This is very exciting thing that I'm seeing at MPS, like in the past just 1 year. So that's amazing.
Questions?
I wanted to, so first, it's really cool to see how engaged the educators are. Like one of the things that stood out to me is even in the slide that was about the feedback, the opportunities for improvement. One of the pieces of feedback was we would like some, headroom to be able to participate and present
Yep.
because we're feeling inspired. So that's really cool. It's like a, an improvement that is actually also still a compliment, I guess,
Yep, absolutely.
I suppose the two questions I have, and forgive me if you did touch on these in the presentation and I
No
just
worries.
missed it. You said no half days next year. I'm curious as to the why of that. And your feelings about it, if that's detrimental or the impact of that. And then also, what are the criteria for evaluating the success of this plan, what are you gonna be looking at in the future to determine if this is working? Besides the feedback loop, I know is a consistent
Yep,
thing, but
yep.
in the end, what you're looking for is to see that there's actually progress being made in those 5 priorities. So
Yep,
how is that going to be measured?
Yep, so let's go to the first question first. The first question, and why do we don't have half days? We have a 1-year agreement based around a calendar that we had to kind of make some shifts just because of how the year falls. So we have a 1-year agreement with the MEA that took away those half days just for 1 year. And yes, I do think, and I do believe all educators feel like they need more time with half days, but in terms of how the calendar worked out, we don't have them next year. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, that was a memorandum of agreement that the school committee and the MEA entered into, to Carla's point, because we had a unique calendar year that Labor Day was falling so deep into September that we had to move a week earlier to start. And we were trying to navigate some of those pieces of parent conferences, early release time, starting early. And it was a compromise to make everything work for that agreement for next year. That's a 1-year agreement. They will be back for the following years.
Okay, thank you.
So how do we measure success? So ultimately, we want to see kind of the traditional metrics rise. I don't expect there's going to be a spike in anything next year, but we'd like to see some type of movement. Some of the traditional metrics, like you said, anecdotally, as we continually gather feedback from educators, where do the gaps still exist? Working. We also have our leadership team who are, kind of in constant contact with educators to either reinforce what's happening, understand what's still missing, keep moving. That's kind of the job of our leadership team. So you have your traditional metrics that you hope to see rise over time with consistency around kind of the way we approach professional development, and you have kind of the anecdotal, like you mentioned earlier, that feedback loop that helps us understand what's happening on the ground.
Right, because you hope to see that number, for example, of people who tier 1 education and feel comfortable with that, you see that shift. Okay.
Yes, yep, absolutely.
And I'd like to also say that Carla and I we were doing learning walks once a week, going to a school for about 2 hours or so. We stopped doing them. We started just meeting with principals to see what they needed for the end of the year. But we bring with us an outline on a cardboard piece of paper with the 5 priorities. And we're looking to see if those 5 priorities are happening in the classroom. And so we're evaluating and doing observations of our principals so they can see, we're asking them, what did you see today? How did that evaluation go? What do you think of that lesson? But we're also dipsticking for, is sticking, are people talking about rigor in their lesson? Are we seeing someone strengthening tier 1 instruction? Are we looking at anybody using data? And we're trying to get evidence of that so we can actually, positively reinforce when we see that with teachers doing it, that they're taking advantage of the priorities and focusing on them. Kyle always has notes for every single observation after. Thank you for focusing on tier 1 instruction. I saw today in your class when we visited. So our goal is, as what I would call short timers, is to increase the energy around focus back on the classroom, focus back on teaching and learning, and students first. And if our measurement may look pretty good with data at some point from student outcomes, but we're also, to your point, Stevie, looking at teacher response. Are people buying into this? Focus back on students, and are they asking good questions, and do they feel like they have agency in this? And I think that they do, and I think they should, and saying that they enjoy that and they feel respected in that. So, we're looking at kind of what's the response of our educators, And then will that start working and showing progress with our students moving forward? Knowing that we have a 2-year window to kind of focus on that and build that back up and build that culture back up of professional discussions, professional development, supervision and evaluation, being in classrooms with teachers, building up that good professional culture, I think is one of our goals for the 2 years that we're here.
Questions? Carla, thanks for this, it's great. Two things. First, next year I would like to attend teaching literary allusions through the music of Bob Dylan. Please, you can put me down for that.
Right? Uh-huh.
And then so you said at the beginning that the primary goal for 25-26 was stabilization and focus on fundamentals. And John, you were kind of getting at this just a second ago in your comment. As you think about the roadmap for 26-27, are you sort of thinking, hey, we need round 2 of stabilization and fundamentals? Are you thinking we're in a good place, let's go up a click? Like how are you thinking about next year with that goal in
So
mind?
I think it's important to continue to focus on those fundamentals, continue with those 5 priorities. I think that's really important. One of the things we're gonna kind of do with our leadership team before we exit for the summer is get some feedback for them. What's happening on the ground? Where do you think we need to dig in? And maybe help educators focus on each priority, choose something that they wanna kind of a little more focused on next year. So if we're focusing on tier 1 instruction, what's a strategy you're gonna try next year? So our leadership team has to kind of talk that through and think what that might look like. But I think you have to spend time and continue with the same, I don't wanna switch anything up on them. I think they need to really continually focus on these 5 priorities because they are fundamental. And if we do wanna kind of move the needle, and we've talked about this before as a group, be consistent, continue talking about the same things, same plug and play goals, let's keep moving. I do think we wanna try to focus a little bit on each of the priorities to see if educators wanna do something really specific related to those priorities, if that makes sense.
Can I shed light on that?
Totally.
Yeah.
So when you look at the 5 priorities that we have, Kyle and I have been talking about, how can we deepen any one of those? What's a sub bullet underneath rigor that a teacher team with the peers can create and say, this is what rigor means to us, and we're gonna focus on rigor and identify a sub goal underneath rigor that they're gonna focus on as a team or as a teacher or as a school building or as a English department. And so giving them permission to really like dig into that and make some deeper, movement on any one of those 5 goals. Keep the structure the same, keep the focus the same. But now that we're all in alignment of what rigor is, and we've done that work of really coming together and talking about it, who wants to go deeper in that? And their goals might be able to be a little bit more specific. There might be something in their team or in their department that they really want to do together that can come under that, and then everybody can identify it as such. So a little bit of a deepening of it, but keeping with the structure and keeping the 5 things that we think are valuable for them to all stay focused on.
Just ask one more real quick. Won't be that long until we're building the budget for the 27-28 school year.
Spoken like the true new director.
Yeah.
Potential chair of the finance committee.
And I can't recall what resources are allocated to fund this work. But is there anything that you think is important for us to talk about as we think about the resource allocation, financial resource allocation for professional development, either next year or just in the future? I know it took a long time to lay the groundwork for the early literacy curriculum renewal. So I'm not saying we can or should change anything next year, but how are you feeling about the financial resources available for this sort of work? Are we leaving big opportunities on the table that we should?
I think we're funded, as you know, for next year, at a level that I think is appropriate, for what we're gonna try to do next year. I think there will need to be some more thinking around the following year. So that's something we need to do early in terms of the budget cycle and think through. Once we're gone, what does the leadership team need? What's surfacing for them as a critical need? But for now, I think we're in good shape. Do you believe the same?
Yeah, and I think when we think of the following fiscal year, we are making 2 of the pieces that we haven't talked about yet tonight is that we're engaging with the teachers lounge in order to give the leadership team professional development, and we're paying that partly out of a grant and partly out of our PD budget. And that's just warming the plate from the leadership team. It's gonna have to go down to staff. So the next, the following two budgets, maybe fiscal 28 and fiscal 29, may need an allocation for higher engagement of the teachers lounge, or a third party to come and do that work, or a train the trainer model where they come in and do more training with leadership, and then leadership becomes the trainer with the district. But we might need to invest in that, so that might be a targeted PD budget item. And we're also, we haven't spoken to you, but we are exploring foundational common curriculum time at the elementary level by having block schedules for elementary, so we can focus on literacy and math, and having tier 1 instruction, meaning that everybody's in that block at the same time, getting the same instruction on the standard-based work of that grade, whether it's third grade ELA or fourth grade science.
Across
in-
all the schools
across all the
together at
schools.
once.
Not all of the, so
Yeah.
we're
It's
so we're
complicated.
running into challenges, right? So
Yeah.
we have a district that has a unique program with
Schedule, yeah.
French and the pathway, STEM pathway. We share teachers, we have different breakdowns of how our grades work. So what we're doing actively right now is planning, each school is piloting what block they want to do for next year. They're talking to the educators about it, so at Glover, it might be just the ELA block. It might be the ELA block at 2 or 3 grades. So we're whetting the appetite of everybody to kind of find out how it would work. And then figuring out whether or not we are ready as a district to move into a full whole-scale MTSS-like model and going into training for that. That would also be significantly supported by an outside third-party person, either train the trainer or come in and do the work. So that's another potential budget item that we might want to put on the plate. And so when I think about big chunks, I think we've said this a couple of times this year, it is our diversity work and it is our MTSS work that we think are the major pieces that we want to kind of put some focus on. And so we might be talking about what that would mean. And we need help to do that. So we would need some funds to engage somebody to come in and support the district in some way. If we think we're ready for it, and if this pilot goes well across the elementary schools, we'll see how we can engage a third party to come in the following year. We are already engaged with the teachers lounge. They're coming in over the summer. They'll be here in June, they'll be here in July. We'll be working with them throughout the year as a leadership. They're great partners. We're already throwing ideas around about what the work could be for the full staff. So, but we'll have a better idea to how to budget for that when we have a clear idea to what we think is the next best step forward. That's all to say that we're trying to do things that we feel the next superintendent would want to continue. We think those are two very fundamental pieces of the work that every district should be doing with a high level of professional development and support. So we're making the assumption that those are things that would be continued when we left. The leadership team is really, and we're all being thoughtful about, we don't want to start something new that someone's going to come in and stop and change, because they've already experienced that 5 years in a row. So we're really being thoughtful about, we know we have more priorities than just that, but what are the ones we can do that we know will have a staying power of, that a universal approach to what is just good for teachers and good for the district to have, regardless of who the superintendent is at the time.
One more area that I'm sorry, Lizzie.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say one more area that I'm thinking about and trying to investigate is a cohort opportunity through MassQ to have our incoming director of instructional technology and a team. I have to apply for it, I have to get in, to develop or continue to develop our AI guidelines and our vision around AI. That's certainly something that we need support around, so that will be another chunk that I think that we're gonna need, not only next year, but going forward, so that will be on the table as well.
And to add some humor to the night, the problem with John Phelan and Kyle Koser is that we don't prioritize well, we don't say no well. So the leadership team says, hey, can you think about working on that? And all of a sudden, we have the 3rd, 5th, and 8th, and now we're going to 10 things that we're to do, so we are trying to be really thoughtful. Obviously, the lack of a technology education director this year has been missed, and we fall behind. So we really want to accelerate that with the hire of the new person. And I'll get to the hiring process in my segment later on today about who's in line for that.
That was a question I had, was just the vision for how that role can support the use of data to inform all of this work. And I was just gonna also say that, I mean, for the 6 of us, like it's actually in our power to determine that these 5 priorities, like our priorities, we will continue as a district, and thus we seek and hire a superintendent that's equipped to carry this work forward. So I think that will be an interesting part of the upcoming transition, is sort of the need to work together to bridge it. And, we'll have a lot of opportunity to talk through all of that. But I just wanted to, I guess, say, Carla, I'm not surprised that you got the feedback refreshing, to the PD, because this is also refreshing. Like you mentioned about like the opportunity to have this level of insight at the school committee into PD is, very fresh and refreshing. I really appreciate it. And, to be able to learn about like what's actually happening in those classroom observations that you had shared with us you were doing, and you shared like bits and pieces, but just to see how it all fits together in this like coherent way is really really helpful. I also noticed the piece of feedback you got about positive feedback on the PD that provided background, modeled strategies, and then gave time for working on implementation. And I feel like that is like research based, that's effective, how to approach professional development. And so I just feel like that, for that to be happening as like a baseline of the approach is just really great, no matter what the content. And to your point, like that's important, whether it's, DEIB related about the culture and climate work, tier 1, or what have you. So that's really good. You had noted about vertical curriculum alignment, like that really is a large undertaking for the next permanent superintendent and team to embark upon. And I do think though that you're helping us set the table for like a better cadence of curriculum review and, some of those key ingredients for that work. And, even my question jumping in around the alignment across all 4 elementary schools, even with the existing curriculum, I think that's something that I hear about in the community, questions about. And so I think just seeing that you have some focus on that, especially with the new ELA curriculum, I'm really glad to hear about that. And I just wanted to finally say, John, you quickly identified the need to, we wouldn't even be having this rich of a conversation about this if you hadn't decided that we needed a full-time assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction, which you introduced as an intervention, to realign our resources to get this work done, And I think it would, with all the things that have happened, we can lose sight of that. Members of the community may not have paid attention to that very strategic move that you took, and then providing us with all this extra capacity from you, Carla, to do this. So I feel like in terms of seeing the result, just even having this presentation with all this data, to me, it reinforces what that investment, has provided. And so I think that in terms of the return on the investment, to even just see that you're collecting that feedback in order to share that feedback, that I think really reinforces the value of the investment. So thank you so much for everything you're doing.
I really appreciate how you've kind of pinpointed where we really need to prioritize first, and I love the variety of offerings that are offered in the workshops. You kind of touched on everything and it still ties back to the priorities. So I really appreciate integrating AI tools. That's phenomenal, right?
Really good.
Yes, so which is awesome because I think just kind of understanding where you are and being present in the present kind of looking to the future and seeing is so important. So I really appreciate the variety that's offered here, but how it still comes back and ties to the priorities, because I think that's what we always have kind of struggled with, that we've had so many,
Yes.
you know, priority areas and there's so much we've taken on, but I love that you know, here are 5 areas that we're focusing on and here are all the things that tie back to that. And you know, I mean, being here, you know, almost as long as Lizzie has and having seen many versions of this has been, you know, pretty amazing. And I just love the detail that you've gone into for each one and just kind of, oh, that's really cool. And even getting this, like, you know, the description of each of them and what they're actually doing and how it ties back, which is phenomenal. So thank you I so give all much. the credit to the educators because they're the ones that stepped up, and in their in the form where they could say, I'd like to facilitate something, they had to tie what they're doing to priorities, identify which priorities it was going to connect to. But they did it all. They prepped it, they gave me the information, they typed the titles. It was all of them. They did all of the work, and the fruits of their labor were great. And I had a lot of folks saying, can we have a part 2 of that one? Because it was so good. So people came back and did another session on that. So I give all the credit to the educators who stepped up. That's great. So do they kind of like go do the research and put all of this together? Like, are They do there the whole thing. resources available to them?
Yep,
that-
and then afterwards, we have a folder with all the people, because the first time around, I learned a lot from the first time around, where, can you share that slide? Can you give that? So we created a way to share all of the stuff that was shared in other presentations. So if I couldn't go to the AI one, but I wanted that information, I could click on that schedule that you're
That's
looking
great.
at had actually 3 more rows that had people and resources and things like that, that the teachers could just access and still can access at any time.
And how does, for instance, like the facilitators that did the AI one, like, did they have other workshops that they went to, attended? Is there like costs associated with that? It's
No.
like covered, like how does that?
So now this was just bring yourself into a classroom, open your laptop, and, or some people, there were all kinds of different workshops, so there, no cost,
Okay.
no
Like
cost.
that's,
It was,
so even for
just
them
knowledge.
to prep for the workshop,
no,
like the
they just,
facilitators.
it was volunteer,
That's
right?
awesome.
So if you don't wanna do it, that's okay. If you wanna attend,
Yeah.
that's fine. But I was just really appreciative of educators saying, I'll do it. I wanna share something. Took a little nudging, and then the leadership team on the ground were like, you should do that thing. You're really good at that thing. You should
That's
offer it.
great.
And that helped.
It built really nice momentum. We were asking the principals and the leadership team to go out and seek volunteers. And then in our learning walks, we could say, well, that 3rd grade teacher at Cunningham's unbelievable at, you know, tier 1 instruction. Can someone go, John, can you go, John Redden, can you go ask her if, would she want to present? And then it just kind of built from there. And there were, from the AI perspective, there was a couple educators who were involved with AJ Melanson's AI committee and the tech committee. So they were really anxious to get out. They wanted to get out there because they didn't really feel like they had a chance to share that information in previous years. So it was really helpful for some of them to, you know, to get up and finally present on the work that they had done. And to Kyle's point, it was all rooted in one of the 5 areas. And I really, you know, we respect teachers very, very much, and I think it was evident that that was part of the process, and I think that they felt that way. And so that's when you ask people to facilitate. But I think also what other people feel who aren't facilitators, the respect of choice. We're not gonna, you're gonna sit down and I'm gonna tell you what you need to hear.
Mhm.
No, that's not working for me. Do you know what I mean? We're gonna give you choice in what you're interested in, and it's gonna be around these 5 areas that we're all focused on together. And you get to choose which one you wanna take part in, and then you have active, more engaged folks. So that theme and that approach that Kyle put in place was really, I think, well received and professionally well received. I think people felt very respected and valued in the process.
That's great.
Can I ask one
No
more
worries.
follow-up question? In terms of the live polling and some of the data that you showed us,
Yep.
I noted, and I think you alluded to this a little bit, that some of the that there's like 169 respondents
Yeah.
out of 233, which
Yep.
is a good number, but I'm wondering if you have any sense of why folks didn't respond.
Well, it's funny, I was thinking about that. I think some people, when you do a live poll, it's on your phone, and I think some people are like, I can't figure this out. So I was running around the auditorium making sure they could figure it out. So it could be that, it could be, I don't wanna engage right now. You know, and I really wanna give educators choice. I just don't want them to feel pressured. I want them to, you know, kind of come to the table, and I offer the opportunity. And so I couldn't tell you exactly why, but those are my guesses.
Okay,
Yeah.
alright. I was just wondering, 'cause sometimes when you have that number of people that are not saying
That says something,
anything,
right.
right,
Sure.
that says something, and
Sure.
are they engaged,
Sure.
are they disengaged, are they the ones who are
Sure.
really not taking to the program? So I was just curious
Yeah.
if you know, had, and if there was any strategy for trying to bring more of them to
Yeah.
that table for the feedback.
Yeah, I think so, multiple layers of feedback are important, so that live poll with the whole group. Then we take the Google form out,
Mhm.
and I don't know this for a fact because I keep it anonymous. I want them to tell me what they're thinking, so I don't, if they have to give their name, they might not tell me.
Mhm.
So there's another opportunity there. If you don't wanna do it in a live setting, you have another opportunity through the Google form to give more feedback. So try to do various ways of getting that feedback, and then of course, all of our directors are meeting with folks and principals. How do you think that went? What did you think? So kind of layers of feedback available, but it's not perfect.
No, but that's great.
Yeah.
That's just like, yeah.
Well,
Thank
you
you.
can keep tracking that like into next year, and that
I
can
was
be
gonna
one of
say,
the
yeah.
things you're looking to see
Improve.
increasing.
Exactly, yep.
Yep, absolutely. That's great.
For the interest of time, I'll save a couple of questions. And members ask for the ones, so thank y'all. I think that just a few comments here, like I appreciate the balance that y'all are clearly trying to make between choice for staff and also within you have some directed time. And the need to allow teachers to engage based on the things they're interested in, and also from an administrative perspective through your classroom walkthroughs, through your kind of team meetings, whatever else, through the data that you're seeing on the ongoing, like what are the gaps we're seeing and the need to say, ooh, we just need to spend more time within this team on this. I also think it's important to know that I think you're covering kind of the high level half days, full day PD days, things like that. There's obviously like much more work with teachers like on like team meetings during the week,
Yep.
right, within the school day, there's the principal meetings after school, there are
Yep.
lots of other kind of places in which professional development, those conversations are happening.
Absolutely.
But I completely agree with your point that just time is needed. We've talked about that, like there's, you can't ever have enough time. There's so many needs on PD, like social emotional learning, behavior management, 504, EpiPen training, right? Just compliance ethics training, there's just so many things pulling time.
Yep.
And so I think that's a real challenge as I see it within
is.
schools with PD. And then how you, I think to the point you're making, like you wanna say yes and like look at all these things, cause all those things are like good for kids, but how do you also go in deep and really change practice by focusing on particular things in ways that will move the needle and not just a one-off. And I think those things are just balances and pain points within how you do it. So I appreciate all the thought, appreciate the presentation. I also just thank you again. You came in August, immediately had to put together this thing, put together a year-long plan. I think seeing you be really mindful of what I've seen, at least from my seat over the last 3 years, which is these historical pain points of teachers of feeling fatigue from all the different kind of jerks back and forth. And so I think you could have quickly lost staff with coming in and putting in a
Yes.
really like
Yes.
rigorous, and so you listen to them, and I think that's great. And I'm excited for what you do next year and glad I will be here. So thank you.
And the planning was done when Carla was 3 days a week.
Yeah, I know.
Right, so
Well,
we
she was
started-
she 3 days a week?
Yeah,
She was doing a
yeah,
little bit
officially
more.
3 days a week and
Yeah.
didn't shift over until mid-year,
Yeah.
so
Right.
the work being done, the volume of work and the quality of work being done with half the year being part-time is really incredible, so thank you very much.
Great. Barbara Ray?
Yes, so we have a presentation we are putting forward tonight as a very high-level overview of some of the options. I wanna kind of start with if the audience is watching this live or if you're watching this on tape, wanted to go through the context a little bit of what we're doing and why and what the goals are and some of the timelines. I'll go into that in a moment, but first of all, we are a district that has concerns related to space. We've talked a little bit about that earlier. We have been accepted into the Mass Building Authority process to build a 7-8 school by the Guile Road campus. That is still happening. That group is still meeting. That work is still moving forward. And then La Brea College decided to close and their facility will be up for sale, which I think is a great opportunity to pause and decide whether or not this purchase could in some way alleviate space within the district, either in partnership with a new building off of Guile Road or in place of that work at Guile Road. So a lot of it is very, very high level. And when we had discussion about this at our previous meeting, the request of the school committee generally was, can you provide us with some options? And so we decided to do that tonight and look at different options and try to pull those options through a similar process so we can kind of get some common data, what's working and what's not. So I'm gonna go through the slides. I hope that works its way through, that we can talk about it. This site, by the way, is beautiful. First of all, the slide before that is this, for those who don't know where La Brea is, this is on Adam Street in Milton. Coming up from Lower Mills, it would be going over Adam Street on your right. Coming from East Milton, it would be going up the hill and on your left. This is what they call Building A, which they also call the mansion. It is a mansion. I think one of the president nicely said, this is kind of like an old colonial. This is not an old colonial, this is a mansion. This is an amazing, amazing residence that was turned into office space that the La Brea administrative team was in. Then behind that mansion, in that beautiful building, are two additions, buildings B and C. Building B is a small addition that mainly is office space that can be chopped up in any way that we would like. These are all connected from the inside, so there's no having to leave the building to go to the next building. And then that third building in orange is the major school building that the classrooms are. Mark and I walked the space with Dick Milano and members of the building committee several weeks ago, and our full leadership team, our full principal team walked it 2 weeks ago to get a sense of the space as well. The next slide shows basically the site potential. We have Building A, which is, quote, the mansion. That's where all the central office space could be. Superintendent's office, special education, tech department, finance department, the DEIB, residency and registration. And, you know, if we had the funds moving forward, maybe a family center, maybe this is where we all go to register for school. What a great way to introduce families to our district by coming in and signing up for school there. Building C, which is the major class building, technically has room for about 12 or so classrooms on the 3 floors. But as we talk further, we're not just looking at these buildings as they're presently constructed. Building C and B would be, if we were to use them, would require renovation. So we're baking that into the thinking. So we really had the principals think of the potential of these spaces. Don't just think of how they're set up now, because it is set up as a nursing school, not necessarily meant for any public school grades. Parts of our work. Building B, again, as I said, it was small offices. We were seeing that room could be used for any one of our specialty services to students, whether it be OT, PT, nurse, custodial space, et cetera. It does have kind of a full basement that facilities might be able to use for a workshop. It's currently a workshop for La Brea. I think it would need a little work to make it be more habitable, but there's a lot of good square footage here in this beautiful site on, I think, about 3 to 5 acres of land that backs right up to Pond Pond. Just to give you the context of the La Brea office option, we are trying to make this PowerPoint self-standing, so when it goes on the website, people can read it if they didn't view the night's committee meeting. So bear with me for the wordiness of it, but I wanted to have something that we can put on the web that people can read later on. But just to give the background, the Milton Public Schools have been experiencing space challenges at the elementary level for several years. The town did take action several years ago, 2 years ago, to increase classroom space at the Cunningham School by creating classrooms where the former library was at the Cunningham, and then putting the Cunningham Library at the floor above that. The first round of that construction happened in summer of '76. We have beautiful classrooms and office space in that what would have been the old library space at the Cunningham now that's being used every single day. And next year, the summer of '26 will be the finishing of the library portion of that. So we'll have a brand new library on top. So that in itself was one big important step for getting space at the elementary level. But the need for the space has been established by the work of the building committee. They've been talking about the need for space for a long time. They've been talking about enrollment and really doing some very good work to establish that we are running out of space. And I don't think everybody in town really understands that that's the case. And having been in the buildings very consistently over the last 12 months, we need space. There's no doubt about it. We need more space for the service delivery to our students. While the building committee was entering into the process with the MSBA and has been accepted into that process, it is in stage 2. La Brea announced that it was closing and it was going up for sale in August. So what we have is a very short window to figure out whether or not it's something that the town would like to pursue. And the way that we were talking with at the building committee meeting that Nathan and I and Mark were at a few weeks ago, the way Sean O'Rourke put it was, you know, the school has to come up with, does this work for the schools? How would it work? What would go in there? And we need to have that work done. So that's what this is gonna be talked about, discussed tonight. Then the way Sean put it very, very well is, and then the town gonna have to set up a way to figure out if it is useful, and we do think something can fit that will have value and will meet the goal of providing more space in the district we've been chasing for more than a few years. Then the town has to figure out how to fund it and how to have that be talked about in the community and have money allocated for that, whether it's through a vote of town meeting or a vote of the town. So that's their job. And then the third job out there is for the school building committee to be available to help shepherd this work through if it does become something we think is important and we are able to purchase the space. Then the building committee we would have to all decide how we would want that body to move into the operationalizing of the analysis, further and deeper analysis, the building renovation that would have to take place, and then starting to take charge of that work on behalf of the school department of the town. So there's 3 jobs out there that have to be done. Our job right now is to say out loud, here are some things that we think would fit and here's why. And then this group would wanna, you know, have that discussion tonight. We may wanna have a second discussion about this as well. And we do have a meeting set up with Nick and some other folks, select board members, I think in the next week or so, to talk about this at a select board school committee / a larger meeting of different folks. So this is exciting. It is a tight window. It is an opportunity. It may be something that will be good for the schools in town, and it may not. But we have to really, I think, take it very seriously.
Can I
Yes.
jump in real quick?
Yeah.
First of all, the site's 4.7 acres. Just on the point of the coordination with the school building committee, as part of the school building update is just, I think the conversation we're having tonight, and obviously as John's saying, like decision around what is our sense of what direction we want to go around programming is important to then share with school building so they can provide in, because we are trying to contract with an architect who can provide some insight of like, okay, is that feasible? Like what would it look like to do that on the site? What would we lose on site? What, you know, where could we put some things? Because then obviously that informs, okay, how feasible is this idea? Maybe we have these grand visions that can't be seen. And so once you get that feasibility, then that comes back to us to determine, okay, is this still the program that we want to move forward with? And are we still interested in this being kind of something we want the select board and the town administrator to pursue, ask them to pursue at least? So yeah, all that happening kind of within this tight timeline context is Sean discussing.
In our conversation at the school building committee meeting a few weeks back, there was some remaining funds that they may have available to hire an architect to kind of give us that overview of what the potential looks like. It would be very helpful, to Mark's point, to have that architectural firm have a program in mind when they're thinking about what the space could, and what they could envision for the space looking like for that population to be served.
Yeah.
So the goal and the timeline, we have a tight timeline here. The goal of this presentation is to review those potential educational program options. We want to be able to provide the school committee and the community with a high level analysis on several academic educational programs and areas for consideration. By the end of June, we'd like to kind of decide on this big picture of what could actually fit there and would it work and do we feel okay about it? And would we recommend that to be the scenario or the option that the architects kind of have in mind when they look at the building for potential renovation or thinking about how they can modify it to serve that population? In July, the town administrator's office would have to consult with the school building committee and the school committee to see what options would work to provide sufficient capacity to achieve that space and have that analysis supported by a contracted architectural firm. And I think at the same time, be thinking about how we want to pay for this, because if we're going to make a bid when it goes for sale late August, this is not a municipal, you know, we can take our time, let's go bid this thing out. we're gonna be in the open market to buy this space. So there's gonna have to be a process for the funding to take place that Nick Milano, our town administrator, is working on. And lastly, in August, the purchasing of this campus would have to have a positive impact on the Milton Public School space challenges, and the town would have to discuss the mechanisms for funding it. So, when I think about this from a big picture perspective, the first question I think about when we go to the next slide, we try to make a quick rubric here. Does it address the needs that we've been talking about for years in Milton that we want to try to remedy, which is the Cunningham and our elementary schools are overcrowded, and we need to be able to alleviate that. The building of an 8-9 school would result in our grade 5 going up to the middle school space because 8 and 9 would be vacated it. And that's how we would loosen up the space under that scenario. Under this scenario, we're taking different grade levels and different populations in the schools through this rubric, because the first thing it has to do is meet, does it work towards the goal that we've had for the last few years? Does it create more space? Because if it doesn't, then we're not just gonna buy it just to buy it. It just has to work and be part of the solution. Can the greater program fit in the library building with the additional renovation? Is the program or educational just a fit for that site, the age, what's needed there? And are there any different or additional operational costs that might be involved that will be above and beyond the normal operational costs of separating any one group into another building? So we're kind of using this as our framework. We're gonna walk you through some scenarios at a very high level. Again, this presentation is meant for anybody to tap into it when it's on the website. So first of all, if we built a brand new elementary school, a K-5 elementary school, to have now 5 elementary schools, so we could spread out our students more and alleviate the space at every elementary school by rezoning the town and having the school be 1 of 5 instead of 1 of 4. So that means we'd take that population of students K-5, divide it by 5 instead of by 4, and create more space in each building. Would that provide relief? It would. Can the grade and program fit into the library building? It would be a 3-strand school, it would be about 350 students or so. Right now, Tucker is our small school at around 400. So imagine a school that's probably a 3-strand school. Would take the pressure off the other schools if we were able to build a new school. Is the grade or educational fit, does it fit the site? I think it would fit the site for elementary schools for sure. It would need a playground, and it would need some things like probably an addition that had some sort of a gymnasium, cafetorium kind of space that we could put on it as well. That's probably likely for all of the options that we're looking at. And what are the costs associated with that? We believe that this scenario is really creating a whole new school where we're gonna have to create, even though teachers will be, spread out across the different classrooms, this will probably be one of the more cost impactful options, because we're gonna have to create a whole new administration, specialists, language, OT, PT, speech, all those different things that go in every school would have to be replicated at this school as well. So this could be one of the more costly operational models that we're presenting, but could it fit and would it work? It could work.
John, sorry, just clarifying question, what's a 3-strand school?
Meaning 3 classes of grade 1, 3 classes of grade 2, and
okay.
3 classes of grade 3.
Tucker is 4, right?
Tucker was 3.
Tucker is 3.
Every 1 year, every once in a while, they have a 4th.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
sorry.
And Tucker also hosts
Pre-K.
two pre-K classes as well.
So this wouldn't be pre-K.
That's correct.
Okay.
Then we started to think about, like, at the high school, would it work to bring any one grade at the high school? So we just kind of worked our way down the high school, middle, and elementary. Just generally speaking, no one liked the idea at all, because the 4 years of high school are the 4 years of high school. We have a comprehensive high school. It's working between the band, the sports, the athletics, and everything that makes up a high school. We would like to make sure that we kept those 4 years together. So could it fit? Sure, we can fit 350 students there. Do we think it's a good academic and educational fit? Probably not. It's not something that we would recommend. Because we actually feel like our high school is actually working well. It's the flagship, and it's actually performing in its traditional 4-year high school. But we could walk it through this process if we wanted to go into more detail. Getting into the middle school, one of these discussions we've had lately, and this is something that I've been kind of a little bit, over focused on, is, do we put our 8th grade somewhere different? And do we create an 8th grade academy where we leave that middle school model for that age group and we really focus on something a little different and hyper focus on our 8th grade students in an academic way? and pull them out of that school and do something different. You know, could it fit? It could. Do we think it's a good idea when we think about all the transitions that students are making? And do we want to have a traditional elementary, kind of a traditional middle school, and all of a sudden pull our 8th grade out and then have them go to high school? Maybe not. But you know, there is some value to thinking about isolating that one group and really preparing them in an isolated way for high school in a very thoughtful way. I kind of, in my back of my head, I like that idea, but I also don't feel as educationally comfortable with the transitions that would mean for students to go out of their traditional middle school, go out for a year and then go back to a traditional high school. But it would probably have some financial cost baked into that as well, because at the middle school, you have all your languages, you have all your specialists, you have PE, art, all those are shared right now between 3 grades that would have to isolate them, and we might have some traveling folks. Similar to the elementary, into the middle and high, do we take 1 grade out of the middle, out of the elementary level and just take 5th grade out? Again, we could. It doesn't feel as impactful as the 8th grade doing that with them. And it also feels consistently interrupting the educational flow of that child as they go through pre-K through high school. Pulling them out just for 5th grade, if you don't have to, would be something that I would recommend. I do know that folks point to Needham as an example that has a 6th grade school. That 6th grade school wasn't by design because that was an educational, well thought out model. It was because they had certain space, they had certain amount of buildings, they had enrollment growth, and so they had to kind of organize themselves around the buildings that they had. It's working for them. Needham is a great district, but I don't think it would be by design. I don't think I'd go that way by design. Then we get into our model of kindergarten and preschool. This is the one that our leadership team feels most strongly about. We feel like we are a preschool director. We already have a preschool that has their own team chair, BCBA, OTPT, speech. They're a unit in and of themselves that is almost like modular. We could actually pull preschool out and put it in any one of our schools and it would work. If we did this in conjunction with adding kindergarten there, it would just be a larger space where the pre-K and the K students could interact. We have been talking as a group all year about the 8 to 9 transition, the 5th grade to 6th grade transition, but also the pre-K to K transition is very, very important. We go from a preschool that we are servicing 3, 4, and 5-year-olds who are on IEPs based on their pediatrician's recommendations. By law, we have to service them, and we're glad to do it because we get them ready to enter into kindergarten. And we also have peer students that go as well to be part of that program. Then that's a big jump to kindergarten, and we lose them at all 4 different schools. And what we're hearing from especially our elementary principals is that wouldn't it be great to soak that whole group of preschool and kindergarten in one school with literacy, and let the least restrictive environment of kindergarten be least restrictive, but in a setting that we still have a lot of control over. We're not losing them to that bigger elementary site, that we can really do a better job of finding out our preschool students who are going into kindergarten. We could be more thoughtful about not, really letting them be least restrictive in kindergarten. And if they're in need of pulling that back to be more restrictive, all those services are right in the building, and with the teachers who do them in preschool. So this is the idea that's really taken a lot of good roots with the leadership team. This could be a literature-rich, vocabulary-rich, support-driven environment. And so this is the one version of the options that I think the leadership team feels most strongly about. And the modification to the building, the cafetorium, the bathrooms, and modifying the building in a way that would be young people friendly is something that I think is construction doable. And it even though it is another transition, it feels like more of a logical transition to pre-KK. And then unique to Milton is that we also won't have students going into kindergarten in a building and then potentially having to make a choice between program and potentially having to leave that school. It alleviates that whole French English lottery. I don't want to leave because I want French, but I don't want to go there. My sibling doesn't take it, they're over here. It would really allow us to have everybody stay in one place, and then when they make a program choice, they can do that in their neighborhood school without having to think that they have to change just 1 year later. that kind of transition change is hard for our families. We're in the middle of that process right now. We just had a lottery. We had several parents tour the Glover who were thinking about leaving either Tucker or Collycott to go for French. And we've spoken to some folks in person or over the phone. It's hard. You know, and so choice is hard. Some people don't want the choice, just tell me where to go. And when you have choice, it's hard. So this might a little bit of that, and it might shave the edges down on it a bit. So we really think that that's one of the strongest options we have, and we go into a little bit more detail later. Then we just think about playing kindergarten, just put the K there. It feels like that would work, but I think partnering it with pre-K is actually more comprehensive and would make more sense for our preschool students to be part of that early literacy or early childhood center. But of course, if kindergarten and preschool would fit, kindergarten would fit and be fine. And then there's a preschool only model that I think is very interesting as well. And Bernadette Butler, our preschool director, you know, if we were able to just, you know, not agree on preschool and K, there's a high demand out there for preschool. At some point in time, we were leaning towards in education to have universal pre-K for every child. We would be building in capacity for that. So if we just had preschool there, we could actually be ahead of the curve by offering preschool either for a fee that we could either, you know, generate some revenue or have it be self-sustaining a little bit. We could offer it to staff if we wanted to have that component of employment. We're trying to retain staff. We have over, you know, 40 people out on maternity leave and paternity leave. It could serve the community well. We have the universal pre-K class at the Tucker that's open, that's not associated with our traditional preschool, that's full every year, wait list to get into that. So that has legs, but that wouldn't really remedy to the full extent our space issue that we're really looking to do. So it's a nice idea, might not fit the first one, which is, doesn't really alleviate that space issue. But it's thoughtful and it's creative, and we're obviously entertaining it. The next slide, why do we think preschool and or kindergarten is to fit? You know, we are creating a space for the youngest learners to be together where we can focus on a solid deepening of their start to public school, which we think is really effective. We'll have 3, 4, and 5-year-olds all in the same space, being taken care of by preschool professionals and early childhood professionals. Early literacy and foundational learning can be provided consistently and deeply in that site, where that's the true focus. The service delivery for students who need it, we're all together in one spot with all people just talking about early childhood development. Students will experience the diversity of the town and their peers before they go away to an elementary school and then come back together again in the middle. That was something that one of our principals thought was a really unique aspect of this as well. The site can be retrofitted to unique academic and social emotional needs, motor rooms, the playground, cafetorium, those things can work, and we can do bathrooms. We could also maybe partner this with a family center, because when you're signing up for preschool, we're working with a lot of different agencies when students are coming in and turning 3, and then, you know, handing your child off for the first time as a kindergartner, especially if you only have one or it's your first one. At least you know you're going to this really nice, small, safe space for that. And we just think it eliminates also eliminates that need to go to a school and then have to make a decision about grade 1. It kind of reduces that stress level. So we let our leadership team know that we will be presenting tonight. This still seems to be the model that they think would be the best fit, least impactful for transitions, really creating an early literacy, early childhood center for kids, really reducing that pre-K to K jump that's made right now, and solidifying, so you really feel good about every K student will leave ready for first grade and ready to go to their elementary school. And I can't think of a better way to introduce a family to the Milton Public Schools than inviting them to, you know, a beautiful site on Adams Street, welcoming them to the district, and having this enriching environment for their 3, 4, and 5-year-olds and preparing to move into the Milton Public Schools. So it's a unique opportunity. I think from a larger scale, from a not a programmatic viewpoint, this is also eco-friendly. Like we're not tearing anything down. We're actually using existing structures and we're renovating them in a way that's all of this will be brought up to code, whether it's windows or anything else. We'll get a price on that. But you know, right now in the field of construction, you know, rehabbing is better than building new. I think it makes more sense. if it were able to take place and alleviate the issue of having to build a new 7th and 8th grade school, we're leaving open space in the town. We work to build on that open space by Gal Road. And I think the town likes to see government working by buying existing assets and taking advantage of them and utilizing them in a way that just makes sense. And I'd really be interested to find out that between the purchase price and the potential renovation price, where that would be from a cost savings perspective, from just a purely financial decision. You know, I think we're targeted right now at somewhere around 170 million for the 7-8 school. That will continue to go up every way. You know, wondering where after you take out the MSBA reimbursement, there's going to be a number that Milton will have to pay, and you wonder what the net to net cost would be. So there's a lot of good advantages to this if it works, and if we're able to, you know, come up with a good plan, and we want to go after it, then we're positioned to do that. And if we feel like it's not a fit or we can't transition to the purchase in enough time, I just still think it's worth exploring, and it's a unique opportunity. So the leadership team is excited about this opportunity. There was a lot of eyes wide open when they were walking through the space. It was really nice. They just kept thinking and thinking and thinking, and it was a good afternoon that we had there. So that's a very high level. It's not the detailed version that we might, you know, have normally done if we had more time on ramp to this conversation. We have a meeting on June 3rd here as a school committee. We have time with the school building committee and the select board coming up where they're going to want us to kind of weigh in on what we think would work. And this is all hypothetical. We think we'd like to do this. Can you go price it out? This is what might work for the school department. So there is a time element to this that we just have to acknowledge moving forward. That's the presentation.
This is great. I really appreciate all the considerations for each of them, pulling out the grades and seeing what makes most sense. I would say just by what's shared here, the pre-K and K, just from a number standpoint, the amount of kids that you can put in that building, you know, versus 350 for the others, but here looking about 100 kids more. So, which is awesome to be able to alleviate that space
Right.
at the other elementary schools. So that's fantastic. I also appreciate the thought process of bringing both of these grade levels together and then also introducing students district-wide early on at such a young age and forming those bonds and relationships, because I do think because when they see each other in middle school, it's a different feeling, and sometimes when they're seeing kids new, they tend to kind of just stay to themselves, or, you know, go with kids that they know, and I think that's where you definitely see that segregation a lot at the middle school, so I think this could really help with that. So I really appreciate what is shared here. I'm glad that we looked at this. I think, you know, pulling out a 5th grade or an 8th grade, you know, as our student rep said, it's great to be the older student, you know, at that grade level, because you've been there for 3 years or you've been there for 5 years, and you're like, great, I am, you know, like the big guy on campus, you know, like that feeling. And it's great. The 8th graders feel that right now. They're all in DC right now. They're just feeling really special with all the end of the year stuff that's coming. The same thing happens in 5th grade. So to like kind of remove that, I don't think it's fair. And I know, like, even with sports, a lot of sports teams are set up 7, 8, 5, 6, you know, like, so it's nice to kind of keep them together. But and thing with the transitions going in from, you know, pulling out 9th, for instance. So I'm glad that we looked at all of those, but I do agree that the pre-K and K is the strongest. So thank you.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, I have a few comments and then a couple of questions, and agree with Anna. This is a great presentation and really helpful to see the options here. Just in terms of comments, I feel like a rubric, if it's a no on either consideration number 1 or number 2, I just feel like it should be automatically ruled out. Helps. The other two, there's, you know, there could be debate within both of those, but If it's not relieving space and we can't actually fit anybody in there, then that's an easy one to me. Similarly, on item 2, can the grader program be fit into the buildings with additional renovation? Like there's another version of a question, which is, are we maximizing our use of the space of that building? Like Anna made the point that, with pre-K and K, we're putting, I don't know actually what the building can hold. So I assume all these options can fit in. But pre-K and K will take 450 versus the other options are 100 less. So if we're able to maximize the space in that building more, I think that's a real plus. What else? Still have a couple of comments here. I think if we do seriously consider any of the single grade options like 5, 8, 9, which it sounds like are lower on the list, I think I would want to learn more just about like what is the evidence on what it means to segregate an entire grade level into another building? Like what does that mean for child development or learning or whatever? There might be pros and cons. The fifth, if it were bad, I don't mind. I think I like the early childhood idea the best here. The 5th grade one is kind of interesting. I think one of the big social challenges for students in Milton is that, they stay with their elementary school pod for a long time, like often all the way through middle school. In 5th grade, integration could be a way to break that down a little bit earlier. I think the pre-KK idea is a good one. I think the idea that a year of integration will somehow do something, I'm just finding that I'm less convinced by that. Sorry, now I just took a lot of notes during your presentation. John, I like the point around the lottery and the way that this could help avoid some of the big headaches, both for administration of the lottery and for families. Sorry, I had one more thing here. Two questions for you now. And if you don't know the answers, that's totally fine, but just transportation wasn't listed here. And probably any new school we have, it's gonna have transportation implications. I'm wondering if there's, especially with the early childhood model, if there's anything unique to consider there around transportation. This is not particularly walkable neighborhood.
Correct.
And these are all young children, they're all gonna have to be driven to the building. And so I'm curious to know how we're thinking about that there. And then if we do move pre-K and K, and I'm not an expert on our preschool program. And so we have preschool at Tucker and Cunningham, and I assume that that's a district-wide program, right? But it's gonna differentially free up space at 2 schools. And I'm wondering if if that will have implications for the catchment zones of those 2 schools in particular. And whether we might have to think about how students should potentially shift between schools to balance out the population, and whether we might have to change the catchment zones to get an even distribution at each of the schools based on what their capacity is.
So first question, the cost of transportation will go up. To answer that question, I think that and there is a potential that your start times might need to be looked at, reviewed again. Some people might think that that's great because people always want to put high schools later. There's a lot of science around adolescence and sleep that we could always use from that. In terms of the zones of houses connected to schools, we already have some. I think I forget what we call them in Milton, but they're buffer neighborhoods where you can be Glover or Tucker on like parts of Thatcher Street. You can be Cunningham or Collycott on parts of the neighborhood off of Pleasant.
Depending on the year.
Depending on just the enrollment, and so we
Right,
utilize those
whatever
well this year.
needs to happen.
And what we ran into this year, and what we also need to be thoughtful about related to where, what addresses go to each school, is we have a lot of housing being built in the town right now, and the majority of it is on the Cunningham Collycott side. So we have DPW units, we have the units right on the highway that may not produce that many families and students, seem to be more high end. But then you have the units that are behind Abbey Park, and they're gonna be children coming from there. So we're already trying to predict how we wanna slightly move our lines a little bit, but I think either whichever unit, whichever group of students go in there, we're probably gonna have to move those lines around a little. In the preschool K, it's a little easier, right? They come from everywhere, they're all going there. But given the space that's freed up at each school, to your point, Nathan, we might need to make adjustments. You know, the Tucker could become a 4th-strand school for grades 1 through 5.
Right.
Because we're freeing up enough space there. You know, we know our community schools need some more space, so people, you're creating more space than you need. You're never gonna have more space than you need in terms of the elementary schools. You know, I would have dreams of science centers, community schools, you know, give Martha Sandoval more space and let her do her thing. More kids can be happy, more parents can be served. So, but in terms of the lines, I think the town's gonna have to look at the lines of how we organize our houses to schools probably in the next 3 years. And I'll gladly pass that on to the new superintendent.
Well played. Thank you, John. Appreciate that feedback.
So I have a couple things that I was wondering. I think this is great. It's exciting. One thing that occurred to me hearing you talk about the opportunities of the pre-K building is a question that, again, we might not know the answer to tonight, but it's something I'm wondering if we could think about is like currently how many do we know how many families in Milton live in Milton but do private kindergarten and enter the district for 1st grade? And what we wouldn't want is to create this amazing center that now people are like, oh, I am going to kindergarten in Milton Public Schools now, and somehow it's like not big enough to hold additional kids. Not just kids, families moving into town, which is happening, but do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Families that have opted out of kindergarten for whatever reasons, but that this new setup might, for the attractive things, bring them in. So that would just be something I'd wanna research to make sure that we're not creating something that is too close to being at capacity, that then we have to reorganize it soon. And then I'm just thinking about, so when you're discussing the opportunity, if it were the pre-KK, to have central office relocated there, then that alleviates space in the high school. Current central office space becomes usable for the high school. So that helps
Special
the
ed
high
department
school.
and your other departments that are in the high.
Yeah,
Consolidated
but
facilities.
that leaves Pierce the place that doesn't
Correct.
directly receive a benefit through this. And so I have whereas the 7th, 8th grade building was sort of an interesting idea because it helped at all of the levels,
Yeah,
right? So
I don't know, and I don't know the 7th and 8th grade plan well enough. So the high school would keep central office at the 8-9 school was built, so then the high school would, 7-8 school would built. So the high school,
no, central office was gonna move to that site
and where was it? Yeah,
as well, and so
To the 7th.
so that would
Yep.
free up high school building space similarly by having central office move out. It wasn't, I don't believe it was gonna move all this special ed department and other additional places. And then, the 5th grade would have been able to move to the Pierce.
to
And
be
then-
The issue is
So-
just the,
I just, I'm sure that that's the kind of thing that just gets sort of vetted in the next level of determining the cost benefits of the model. But I that was just something that I was wondering about, and honestly, I just think that there are a lot of interesting new benefits it's that this opportunity presents that the, upper middle school doesn't actually address, but
Just on the space piece, I have some questions on that too, but generally, I think this site is smaller than
Right.
the new middle school, right? It's 4.7 acres, because we were looking at minimum 6 acres, which Guile Road is. It's over 600 kids, right? Because it's 330 kids per 7-8 grade, so it's almost
Right.
close to 700 kids. This is
not accommodate
not
something that
gonna,
big, right?
yeah, again, we'll have the architect look at it. It's very unlikely we'll be able to accommodate something of that scale. So anything we do at La Brea will, by just that math, be
Yeah.
smaller than anything we would do at Guile. And so therefore,
Makes
the
sense.
space, the positive space impacts we would see across the other schools would be lessened by doing this. The question is how much, like to what degrees?
But it looks like you would be able to put more of the district personnel there than based on the 7 and 8 model, right? Or would it just be central office that would move there?
I'm not aware of this, what the plan was for central office at the middle school under the MSBA options that they're moving through, so I don't want to speak to it because I don't know in detail. We understand that the Pierce is not impacted with the library site negatively or positively.
Right.
Bill understands that. He's the only one that doesn't get any kind of flexibility there. And that's part of the decision, right? So we go, if it costs less and it does 80% of what we want it to do, great. And if there's some educational benefit because we like what it does with the pre-K, then great. So we're gonna have this little off list where, something's gonna be missing somewhere. The nice part about it could be more timely. There's gonna be a pros and cons, big picture list, right? From financial to operational to educational to space, that we'll just have to walk our way through and say that the balances work in the favor of moving forward with it or not, for sure.
Stevie?
Is there any universe under which we consider doing a K through, because thinking about the Pierce and, anecdotally knowing that when my kid was there not more than a couple of years ago, there were space issues and they were using library classroom space and that sort of thing. Is there any universe in which we considered a K through 6 option, which was the thing of alleviating some space at the elementary level and also alleviate space at Pierce?
So we thought of it as if we go with pre-K library and the space opens enough, if the impact is space opening up in a very unique way at every elementary, then you could bring 6 back down to elementary and you could have a 1 through 6.
I see.
If every school loses their K, then you're gonna replace them with 5s, but you're gonna lose the preschool. So is that net, does that net impact of that provide us a good enough flexibility at elementary and that then naturally would provide you space at the high school? I mean, at the middle school, it could only then be, that's where you could go 7, 8 in central office and then everybody could possibly win. So we did discuss that point. You just move all the pieces around, do you know what I mean?
Sure.
So the difference there, in thinking about what the architect would need to explore, would be what you're talking about there is central office does not relocate to La Brea.
Yeah, it could anyways, because the main, the mansion or the building A
Yeah.
is uniquely cut up that would never be
Okay.
able to be a
So
school.
it would be there probably either way.
Either way, yeah.
Okay.
So
And
the high school
then
would gain space that way.
the analysis that the analysis needs to happen about whether bringing the pre-K out of Cunningham, whether that creates the opportunity to bring 6th grade down.
Pre-K and K.
Pre-K and
out.
K, I think it's
Yeah.
predicated.
Yeah, so that's a pre-KK, 1 through 6, 7, 8 school, 9 through 12, no central office at the high school, central office being at the pre-KK. And now all of a sudden, we do have space at the middle school that's 1 grade less. And that's where the extra space would be available for whatever the next, whatever configuration you'd wanna be thoughtful about it.
So, like-
Obviously, Glover doesn't get any space in that scenario. If you assume the 6th grade that they're gaining is the same size as the kinder they're losing.
Yeah,
They don't have a pre-K. Collycott kind of.
Right, but that I wonder if that is part of the conversation about the redrawing of the lines. maybe the catchment zone for Glover becomes like a little bit smaller
It could, because
somehow.
if Tucker becomes a 4-strand school, then you can start to slowly fine tune it really comes down to how many section will each school be? It will be a 3-strand, right? So
Yeah.
if you have a 4-strand school at Tucker, a 4-strand school at Glover, could you have all 4 schools be 4-strand schools and make that work that way? It's
Such a
free of
small
all space.
building.
And we're averaging about I think it's 330 at 330 and 340 that FBA said we're gonna, the average kind of 7th and 8th grade, I think they settled in a cohort of about 330
Per grade.
per grade.
Yeah.
So if that's being projected as the 7th and 8th grade one, that's a little smaller because that takes into account the attrition that we're losing some students in middle school. I'd say that we should plan 350 elementary grade class size. Do you know what I mean? That's more than the 320s that we're seeing lately. In the middle of what you've seen some 370s.
Right.
Too. So, but to your point, Lizzie, you need to pay really close attention to not building something that doesn't have the full capacity in just 4 years. And there is a build it and they will come factor to any new construction that you'll have.
Yeah.
The nice part about the 7 and 8 school is that we want people to come to 7 and 8 because that's kind of the valid. That's where the enrollment pauses a little bit before it goes back to the high school. So, but all definitely good things to think about because we're trying to build capacity. That's the whole point of the purchase.
I had a question just on the numbers. So again, I think you were using 350 for most of the scenarios, given that's kind of about the cohort size per grade. And so, and most of these are like 1 grade scenarios. Obviously, we would need to see with the architect if we think 450 kids could fit on the site with the pre-K case scenario, which had like the biggest enrollment impact. If we assume 450 kids could fit on the site, I had a very similar thought to you of like a K6 model. Like, have we thought about that? Could we think about a K6 model, which again would then turn all of the schools into K6s? Obviously, like issues with that is you're keeping kids, it does the opposite of your 5th grade idea of like you're keeping kids apart 1 year longer, which I know is a concern within the school, but you're not adding an extra transition because in any of the other scenarios, you're adding a 3rd transition for kids. Issues you would have to redistrict as you would with the K5. And again, I think an issue you brought up that I had too with any of these like elementary ones is that it's just not a walkable area. The idea that with all of our other schools, you just see so many families just walking their kids and flooding the streets to get to school, and that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's just not that, like, I don't see how that could be. So
So
that almost
in the K6 model, to the Glover point, that requires us to make sure that we're using, say, Tucker as a 4-strand school to alleviate grade space, because you can't add 6th graders to Glover because they don't have the space.
Right.
Again, you would add kids to Glover because you'd be reducing Glover, in the other grades. The only way that would work is you'd be
You'd
pulling
have
kids.
5 K6, that's
You would
what we're
have
talking about.
5 K6.
That's what
Oh,
we're
you're
talking
talking about
right?
having it be a
Yeah.
K5 school. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Well, no, I'm saying it's the K5 model, but instead of making it a K5, you make all of them K6s because you're pulling kids out of the other schools.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
And again,
pick that
could
up
you
on
pull
your-
enough kids out of the other schools?
So 5 K6 schools.
Yeah.
I want to add one point is that pre-K right now is not required by law. We
Well,
do
it is
have.
for special
Yeah, for
education.
yes, but we do have a half-day pre-K program, so the 120 pre-K
60
students is
60 at a time.
60, yeah.
So the capacity is really 410.
Yeah.
Because it's a half-day program for most of the students. They take them half, correct?
But we do have one class that is full day,
Correct.
that's at
1 or 2.
I think it's one.
It's 1.
18 spots.
But then if you're doing a full elementary school, you would have to provide all the staffing needs there.
I think it's the biggest
I had the-
cost driver.
I had the
And
question on
still the
that,
bus
because
though.
all of your scenarios, you have a principal, you have elective staff, you have front office staff. I think other than the pre-KK,
Yeah.
because you would
Yeah.
convert the
Director.
Bernadette to
Correct.
that.
Yeah.
And so like that saves you that one position. You still potentially, I mean, I guess the question is like, how many elective teachers do you need? half-day pre-K and then a kindergarten model, and maybe that's a little bit less than the other scenarios, but like otherwise, the front
Yeah.
office staff, you still need, the custodians, you still need, like none of
Correct.
that's changing.
Correct.
So like it's,
It's more about specials in any languages
Yeah.
that have to travel. Added adjustment counselors. It's all gonna be, there's gonna be fine degrees of what is too much and what's not enough.
Mhm.
And then you have to compare that also to, is this the 7th and 8th grade school, what does that look like? Cause I think
Right.
people are gonna wanna know that answer as
Mhm.
well. I think traditionally people say, oh, it's all the same, everybody just moves over.
No.
Kyle and I just went through this in the previous district. It does cost you, there are more staff that you need to hire. There are custodians, there are these auxiliary positions that you need to provide. It's not overwhelming and it doesn't make it not worthwhile, but there are more positions that you would need to add to make whatever we do work.
Yeah, I'm just thinking it's the question of, again, exactly what is that delta you point to of, again, adjustment counselors, that's you have more kids that are getting older, maybe you need to, and you're just adding more people within that space.
Mhm.
You need some more of those positions. Any, I guess a question I'd have is, as a like next step would be, any honing down of what we think, like that delta could be between a K5, K6 model versus like the pre-K to understand that, because it does seem like there's a lot of overlap between the positions that would be needed, not 100%.
There is a factor which, becomes about the town having a sense of like buy-in to the opportunity. Obviously, it's about benefiting all the kids in the town by alleviating overcrowding. I think it is also a little bit, it's a different proposition to introduce like one beautiful new elementary school while the
Yes.
rest of our, in that case, 4 elementary schools continue to age
Mhm.
in place
Mhm.
while we have this beautiful new one. So a fifth of our students are, attending. So I'm not saying that's a reason not to do it if everything else points towards that, but that just becomes something that you have to like help the community sort of think about, which is just different from introducing a facility that serves the entire town,
I would agree with that.
which is the case for the early childhood
Yeah.
or the middle school, and which like all families who have children of that age,
Could universally benefit by it,
benefit
yeah.
from it. It feels more like a benefit to the
Yeah.
whole town. So that would be something that would need to be like, I think, addressed head on, to avoid some
And
feelings about that.
And I think just looking at the Library College site and seeing the mansion, shows, like, it's like it appearance wise too, even though the classrooms are in the other building behind in the back, like, it's just that perception of like, oh wow, like this is where this new elementary school is gonna be. So I do appreciate the thought process behind, the K and pre-K from that
Yeah,
point too.
the lack of walkability to it is a very interesting point that you brought up, Nathan. I don't know whether how many people could access that on foot, do you know what I mean? And what does that 3-strand school look like, and what neighborhood does it serve, and
Right.
how would that balance everything out? It's interesting. I do like the universally, everybody being able to benefit by this new space, by going to either pre-K or K there. That feels better to me, whether that's emotional or intellectual or data-driven or not. It just feels better to me to have everybody access this space for a really unique experience before they go on to their elementary school.
I do think one of the challenges with the site is gonna be the mansion, in that, to the point you made, I don't think there's any way in which you can salvage the mansion and have it be a student
Correct.
usable
Yeah,
space.
yeah.
They're just walking through it like it is. And so that's a large chunk of the site, the facility, and the kind of need to figure out how you create access for people to come visit the administrative offices or whatever else that is, that then would make a larger building like a K6 challenging. Because the site is obviously, Tucker is 2 acres. It's obviously a very tiny site.
Right.
This is 4.7 acres, so
Yeah.
Tucker is 450 kids. So like the idea that we could fit 450 kids, 480 kids on this site is doable probably, but again, you're gonna start losing parking. There's not really
Yeah.
good other alternatives to parking. Although people at Tucker probably would say similar, of like they could benefit from parking. Anyways, so things like that are things that just come to mind. And so again, I do think the pre-KK is a strong proposal. My just concern is the additional transition, which again, we have with the upper middle school thing, so it is an issue, but
yeah.
I think there are a lot of.
Is there
Concepts.
room within the 4.7 acres if we wanted to potentially if enrollment increases to add on, since these buildings are they all look very different, but they're all connected, so is there potential, is there room or is it conservation, is there anything like that
So
we?
they said there's no conservation land on the acreage. There is conservation land that abuts the acreage that's owned by Fawn Pond, from what I understand from that conversation.
Wetlands.
The wetlands, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny, we're talking about expanding capacity, but we're worried about expanding capacity to the right level, right? We was, so
Yeah.
but it's accurate, we really have to make sure that if we do this and we organize ourselves as to kind of work for the cohorts that we decide to put in there. And so I'm interested to see if the 450, 410 would work on the pre-KK, and in my head is spinning with, so what does each of the elementary schools look like without their K? And how do we want to think about that? And maybe there's some, for lack of a better term, mining of good ideas about how could we utilize good space in elementary schools differently, now that the space is potentially freed up a little bit. And the first thing I come to is after school care for our community, which is really something that people need. And if we have the funds to operationalize any kind of, science centers and things like that, or tech centers with each elementary school. We had a lot of conversations in our district about when we moved to the 7 through 12 model, and then we had a 4, 5, 6 intermediate school that would have extra space in it, and then we only had K to 3 schools that would be the 4 elementaries, and we knew we'd have some extra space for after school care, but also we were really thinking about unique programming, that if we could generate the funding for, what better to have a science center, what better to have some sort of a tech center or a literacy center or whatever that would be, that every student could access in that building, and that the educator could pop around building to building and be the specialist to do. If we're lucky to have more space than we need to a certain degree, not to the point where we don't need it in the taxpayer say that's not a good use of money, but to have other educational programming that would benefit kids, that would be a good thing.
Another thing in this conversation about the school in general that we like is the opportunity for space to house programs that could allow more students who are currently out of district to remain in district.
Absolutely.
And that would be beneficial across for the education, but all inclusion, and also the financial savings of not needing for them to go out of district. So those kinds of calculations feel really helpful to be able to make.
Yeah, this is all, it's all exciting. I guess in my brain, the next steps are hearing from Sean and Nick about the architect and what's a deliverable that we need to give to the school committee and to that group in order to make this more real and substantial for them to actually have direction. It might be you need to tell us which ones you want, guys. Let's go. I don't know. I really want to hear from them about what the deliverable is. I'm assuming they're going to want to know at least 1 or 2 options that they want to kind of sketch out and see what that would look like and if it's doable. And I think in construction these days, anything's doable. I also want to make sure that we're good neighbors to that community. So I'd like to think that they would appreciate a school going in after a school. And who doesn't want pre-K kindergartners and the noise of that good noise in the playground? I think it's all good stuff.
I don't know. Be surprised.
I live next to the high school, and every time I hear the crack of a softball bat or the cheer at a lacrosse game, I just think it's awesome, and the lights go right into my living room.
Yeah.
I have no problem with it at all. I think it's fantastic. So
Yeah.
You're raising a good point, which is at what point in this process going forward would it become important to offer a
community.
session for neighbors, et cetera? That would be good to do sooner rather than later, if it's moving forward.
Yeah, I think in my brain, and please jump in, the order of operations is let's find out what the other 2 parties of this triangle look like. what do they need from us? What decisions do we need to make? I just don't wanna hold it up.
Yes.
Whatever we need to get done while our leadership team is here and we're in school and we're all in session, to give them time in July to kind of work out whatever they need to work out, assess, draw up, cost out, timeline out, and then come back in October and come back in August and really have harder conversations. If this is viable or not, I think is where we ultimately will be.
Yeah, I think we need to move towards limiting the options. The more
Yes.
options you ask the architect to do, the more expensive it is, the more
Yeah,
time it takes,
time.
we don't have time. And so I think ideally, they would like us to come up with one design option to say, let's move forward and cost us out. And so if that's something the committee
Yeah.
feels like we can get to, then that's great, because they can put more time and investment in there. I don't know if we need to get there today. I do think if there's particularly like, if we feel like we can throw out option, like get rid of certain options that John and the team have looked at. If we feel like we can get rid of all of them except for one, then that's great. We again don't have to make that today, but if we feel like there are a couple still on the table that we'd like some more information about, for John and the team to like think about and come back and further the conversation on that's what I'm looking for members to say. It sounds like I haven't heard anybody kind of raise the flag for the grade 9 program. I'm just saying what I've heard, and so correct me, or the grade 8 program, or even the preschool only program, or the K only program, because it seems like those have some challenges.
So I think there's some value in keeping those slides in there. Some of those other discussions that we had, kind of populating some of those, like, you know, if we put in a new K-5 or K-6 school there and it's brand new and it's like kind of the same, like, how does that feel? And just kind of put it in there so that if we do have a community forum, we have explored every single option, you know, possible. And if there are other ones, great, that come up, you know, we're happy to look at that, but based on all these discussions and talking to, you know, the other, you know, Nick and Sean, and kind of fine tuning it, but to put information in there saying that we've explored all of these.
Yeah, I'm not saying for the community forum, I'm saying for us on the 3rd.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
Like, I think
yeah.
we wanna narrow it down, because I think they put together some good, very quick information. But how do we, what are the scenarios here we want them to look into more?
Right.
Again, it seems like pre-K through kinder, that I feel like there's general alignment that like, that needs to stay on the table, we need to keep talking about that. Is there something else beyond that? That we want to discuss?
Oh, no. I like the 8th grade, that you know, we briefly talked about, but I think when we're talking about the vertical alignment and the 8th to 9th transition, we're addressing that, so I don't think it's needed. It's interesting because I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done at that grade level, but since we're addressing it through all the other work that we're doing, I don't think it needs to be on the table.
I liked Nathan's point earlier about the two most important things being, does it alleviate space, because that's the main purposes, and then, you know, can you fit the number of students in, and that anything that has a no in either of those really kind of falls out of consideration. For me, I agree with that, and I think grade 9 meets that criteria because it doesn't alleviate space that we need. Relieve space at Milton High School, you know, but I don't think we've talked about that being a place that we're constrained.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Pre-K through K, when we talk about 5 K to 6 schools, where does pre-K go?
So you're talking about the option, not the pre-K option, but a
Of
K
a
through
5th,
6?
yeah, a 5th K through
K-6.
6 school. That was one of the things that we put on the table,
Mhm.
in knowing that, that if we, I'm trying to wrap my head around it, and
I
I'm
think
not
that's a challenge of
trying to
that
offer.
idea.
I mean, you could do the addition with some additional space for pre-K to pull pre-K out of Tucker, right? If that's a place that's gonna, the issue is with the K-6 model is it only works if you're pulling a strand per grade level out of the other schools, right? To give them
Right.
that stuff. And that means Tucker becomes a 2-school strand, which is very small.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah,
could you
that's-
actually mathematically do it. I don't know if the answer is right. I was like trying to do some rough math and I'm not sure I got to the numbers. Like how big would it need to be? Again, theoretically, if Tucker is I keep pointing in this direction. If Tucker is a 450 person school and if the new school can be about that size, could it service kind of a similar number of students and strands as the Tucker school minus pre-K? Or again, could we make it a little bit bigger, make it serve 500 kids with pre-K, something like that? Because the site is 2.5 times bigger than the Tucker site. So this is like very rough math, and so I think you'd have to, you could immediately disregard this idea because you just can't fit the kids. The addition would need to be way too big given the constraints of the mansion.
Yeah.
I also think something to name is the K-5 program. As you said, you'd have to add a gym in addition to adding a playground, in addition to adding a cafeteria versus a pre-K scenario, you are really just adding a cafeteria and a playground.
That's right.
You don't need the gym.
No languages, no.
Yeah.
Right, the
Yeah.
walkability factor that someone mentioned, I think is important. I think that's important.
I don't think they offer languages in pre-K and K anyway.
No.
You don't.
No.
We don't, so that, that's
If this is gonna get further considered, I think the idea of a 2-strand school.
I don't think
Yeah.
that that's
is not a
educationally
good
healthy.
idea. So,
I think teachers need at least 3 classes
Yeah.
to work.
especially if it's
it-
K-6 and those kids are together for
Yes.
7 years with 2 strands, like.
You could also do something funky with the language programs
Yes.
too.
Yeah, you couldn't have
You could
French
end up with
probably.
2 classes or no classes. There could be some weird stuff going on there too.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a good idea for all those reasons.
2 things. One, it's important to say it out loud, because if you can wrap your head around it quickly and we can all understand it, then it's, then it's why we need to just dig into deeper.
Yeah.
But as you start to, in my head, I'm just operationalizing everything,
Yeah.
and I'm just walking through every building at the same time. Wanting to make sure that whatever the deliverable is for the 3rd, I can present it in a way that can be consumable, be thought about, so we can get this done for the end of June.
I think the other thing I do wanna stress a little bit is what you talked about in the meeting, like giving teachers voice, right? And they, if everyone is kind of unanimously saying that pre-K and K work in this space because we're in the buildings every day and we kind of understand the landscape and, our space needs and the challenges and all of those things. I think that's a huge consideration, right? Like we could talk all day long about different options, but they're the ones in the building, and I think
I
that's
think,
really
it's
important.
funny,
Yeah,
I won't
thanks for
say
saying
which
that.
principal said, but they said, I'm gonna cry if my kindergarten is leave. Like, so this is gonna be hard, no matter
Yeah.
how we divide this, these are components that we're trying to move around, and the only one that seems to be movable without disrupting a school culture is kind of preschool. Because they're their own kind of group for a little while. As soon as we delve into a grade, I think everybody's gonna, I love my 5th graders, why do they have to leave, I love my kids. We're gonna definitely see a lot of that, and and understandably,
Can I add another layer to this
yeah.
that you just made me think of? One of the challenges our elementary teachers have, because they're on 2 different schedules, is getting together and collaborating. You add another school to the mix,
That would make it
It's-
even harder.
it makes it even harder.
Start
We-
time and end
So
times, yeah.
that's kind of the differences that you've talked about in terms of elementary schools. You add one more, now you have another layer. So teachers wanna talk to each other. And they need to talk to each other, and they need to learn about each other's practice. So if you separate them again,
Mhm.
now it's 5 places I need to try to figure out how to go to. So
Yeah.
this just something that occurred to me when you said that, Anna. I was like, oh yeah, and that's another thing we've heard in the feedback. I want to meet with my grade peers.
Yeah.
Very hard to do. now.
Whereas, as you were saying, John, the pre-K brings all the kindergarten teachers together in one space and provides a foundation to all
Mhm.
of the students. That's common.
Yeah, and it's really early childhood centered versus traditional elementary school separated by subject area and grade, as much as it's gonna be a real early childhood center, which would have its own kind of little curriculum leadership group in that have to be something that would be leading that, but it would definitely be from an early childhood viewpoint versus having to make sure that treating Ks like your grade fives from a curriculum, it's just not the same. Kindergarten is a very different environment from a learning perspective than a fifth grade is, Jimmy. And yeah, that's the educational piece. Thinking of it through a teacher's lens, an age-appropriate developmental lens, you know.
Are you in the, I know the leadership team was part of the visit and the conversation. If this is becoming some, like, have the pre-K and kindergarten teachers been consulted in this yet?
Not at all. No, we've just laid this out with everybody being potentially impacted. They're aware that we're all talking about it, but it's very, very early in all these things. I wouldn't want to have conversation with folks that if it's off the table, it's off the table. But if we are narrowing it down to 2 or 1, then we would want to meet with folks and have a voluntary meeting and just.
But the idea through the principals, that's sort of our way of,
Right.
of if the principals are supporting the idea, that's our way of hopefully understanding that, like, the teachers are not opposed to the idea.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that, right? Because we haven't asked them yet. Jimmy and I
Okay,
really
so
want to
maybe
let them
that
speak for
would be-
themselves, yeah.
So I understand what you're saying as far as, like, it might not move forward for myriad different reasons. And if it's a good idea that we want to pursue, it might not be possible, but I guess that would be something I would want to personally know before, like, supporting to move it forward, that at least there had been a layer of consultation with the teachers that would be directly impacted by the shift, even as a hypothetical shift,
Yeah.
to make sure that they have the opportunity to say, like, I absolutely would not want to do that as a kindergarten teacher in, you know, so yeah, because that would be tough if we were like moving forward an idea that
Did
it
we have
turned
that
out-
conversation with 7th and 8th grade teachers? We said that we were gonna have a 7th and 8th grade school.
Yeah, I think they did they did listening sessions, right?
Well, I
Didn't they?
honestly can't remember that, but
Maybe
I think the difference is that
it's the
they're already
timing.
together, like the 7th and 8th grade staff are already.
Yeah.
They're not being
They're
pulled.
not
yeah.
sep-
I
it
mean,
would
they're
be
being
about
pulled out of
like,
the
yeah,
building, but-
taking them out of their, I just thought of
We
it
didn't
when
talk
you were
about the
saying the
5th grade
principals,
moving out.
would be sad to lose the kindergartners, like, there may be reasons the kindergarten teacher like to be part of the
Absolutely, there's no
K-5.
doubt about it. I think that they do. I think it would be hard for our kindergarten staff to be disconnected from their historically K-5
Yeah.
schools. And I think that I don't want to diminish the fact that as a parent, being a parent at one school for K through 5 is the longest stretch you get.
Yeah.
And it becomes your school and your social community, not just your school community. It's really important. It's the only stretch you really get that's that long. And I think there's a lot of value in that. That's why some people like K-8s, because it actually extends that way. I know a lot of districts do 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, they do all these choppy, but I think that reduces community. So there's definitely going to be differences of opinion with teachers, probably families, about how that would impact them. Of a parent of 5 children, you know, having all of your children at Glover and walking to one place with 2 in a carriage and 3 at school, and you know, and then being that person who has 2 at Glover, 2 at Pierce, and 1 at the, you know, then all of a sudden you're like this. But there's value to the community of the school, especially at the elementary level when it's their little folks, you know. But teachers will wanna. Teachers have been working together for a long time, you know, and they have friends and colleagues in different grades that they would probably sorely miss, no matter how we're gonna organize this in any way. But they should have.
I don't wanna put it out to any group of teachers until this body has decided this is where we're gonna go, because I don't wanna disrupt and worry a lot of teachers if we're, you know, the model needs to be decided first, I think.
Right.
And then we can get some input.
Yeah, because the other part of this is that if this meets the space issue, the financial issue, frees up money in the operating budget, you know, all these things just might be decisions that might have to be made, period. But I would like to find out what they would prefer, or how they feel about it, and what would make it easier if that was a transition that they had to make. We did a lot of work after the decision was made to reconfigure our previous district in a way we did, to then go and meet grade by grade by, all right, you're gonna move and you guys are gonna stay. And we just did listening tours where we just listened, and you could really see people who were just like, yeah, this sounds great. And then I've been so long and I would miss that grade. It was just, it was all genuine, you know what I mean? It was really impactful.
I just want to be mindful of time. I think we've had a very nice, robust discussion. Do you feel like you have, we're gonna continue, I assume, the discussion next meeting
Yep.
on library. We will have the conversation with the town administrator on kind of that information. We really won't have much more from school building committee other than maybe that we sign something with an architect. But is there other like questions you have on just
No,
like
I just
further
said,
analysis into some?
No, a really good conversation. Thank you for the ideas. I just need to digest it a little bit and get
Yeah.
a sense, and maybe when you and I and Anna meet about the next meeting, we can kind of fine tune what we think is needed to be reviewed again or discussed in a way that might be more helpful. Is it just putting these things over here for now and focusing on 2 or 3, and do we want to add one?
Yeah.
I have to say that this is the busiest time of the year, other than the first 3 weeks of school. That we have a leadership meeting on Tuesday that we were thinking of letting principals stay in their buildings because that's where they need to be. There's field days, there's things going on. And MCAS is still in place at school, so it's really hard to dedicate a big chunk of time over the next 2 weeks just to this. But so fine tuning it in my brain first, talking it out, and then finding out how we can operationalize it would be great.
Just ask if members have follow-up questions as you're also processing it, please just email those in advance, so that helps inform the discussion. We can, because again, time is sensitive and right, it's a very busy time. Hiring update?
Yeah, so very quickly, I actually forgot my superintendent's update, but I'm gonna skip that.
Sorry.
I wanted to, first of all, let you know about the administrative hires. We have the Director of Business and Finance, the Human Resources Director, and the Director of Technology, Instructional Technology and Data Analysis, and the Assistant Director of Student Services. All those search teams have been at work. The search team for the Director of Business and Finance was Carla Cosa, Maureen Kennedy, our payroll administrator, Martha Sandoval, our community schools director, and Pierce Principal Bill Fish. They did a screening and then they interviewed candidates, came up with 3 finalists. I have met all 3 finalists, and I will make an initial offer to somebody tomorrow. And we hope to tie that job up by the end of next week. We have 3 very qualified folks. It's going to be a hard choice. So Carla and I have met to go through the notes of what the screening team thought of those 3 candidates. And then Danielle Wetmore and I were 2 finalist candidates that we met with the 3 finalist candidates over the last 3 days. The screening team for the Director of Instructional Technology and Data Analytics was Carla, Holly Concannon, Bob Patterson, Jessica Jabo, technology teacher at the high school, English department head H. Hardy, and library Dennis Alpert. They had a really thick pool. We were really surprised at the quality of people we had applying for this job that we were a little worried about when we add data analytics to it. I interviewed the 2 finalists today. You wouldn't be able to go wrong with either one of those folks. We're really, really fortunate. Coming from great districts with really good experience. So we feel confident, so jobs will be offered to one of those folks in the next day or 2, and then we brought in for a finalist interview and signing of a contract if they take the job. Screening committee for the Director of Human Resources is led by Karen Cahill, Dr. F.A. Shavers, MEA President Brendan Bond, and Cunningham Assistant Principal Andy Young. We had Brendan on this because our union is working very connected in some of the HR functions, and we wanted to make sure we had support from them. They're in the beginning stages of they've had 1 interview, but they interview several candidates over the next 2 days, and they're interviewing 7 folks, and they hope to yield 3 that will go to the finalist stage, and then I will interview. There are experienced, qualified school HR folks in that pool, which is really exciting. Milton has never had its own HR person, and this is really exciting for that to happen. The Director of Special Education, the Assistant Director, Danielle Wetmore has been running that with Dr. Fish, Bernadette Butler, Preschool Director Molly Mason, Special Education Teacher at Collycott, Tom Phelan, High School Special Educator, Glover Team Chair Maura Lamoury, and Speech and Language Pathologist Shelley Wolf. So as you can see, all these teams have multi-grade, multi-subject folks on it. They are interviewing, I believe, 7 folks for that role. They have some qualified folks in there as well. So we're really excited about the pool. These roles were all advertised at the Boston Plan for Excellence, the Teachers Lounge, Indeed, School Spring, and we're actively working with the Teachers Lounge to reach out to folks and network partners. So we think that we're diversifying our pool considerably in doing so. 2 of the 3 finalists, as an example, for our finance job are people of color. Then we also have roles like out of district coordinator, team chair. We have our building-based jobs that are open. Some of these are due to resignation. Some of them are due to realignment. I'm sure this list will get bigger over time because people make decisions over the summer. But each interview team at each building will be doing that in a building-based way and then bringing their finalists up to central office. I think we've said this before, but just to say again, the entire leadership team was trained and went through a training session with F.A. Shavers. Dr. Shavers presented for at least 45 minutes on bias through the interview process, work with Kala on how we can use the job description to identify what we consider to be the qualities in a person versus, someone who went to the same school as me or who looks like me. So we're trying to really base everything on qualifications in the job description to try to take that bias out. There's a lot of strategies that FA gave us that those slides are now being presented at the building-based teams. So everybody's getting the same message about this is how we really want to be thoughtful about how we're interrupting our bias when we're walking through this process. So between diversifying the pool, going through training at every level of the district, making us all aware of what we're trying to do in terms of diversifying staff. These are the strategies that we're taking to hopefully diversify our staff. We met with CDM and Mark on Monday morning and went through this whole process with them as well. I think that they were very thankful that this was very concrete and happening, along with our work with the Teachers Lounge to get support from an outside party. So I think it's been a very, very different process this year than it was in years past. And now really what we need to do is we can see what happens in October. I mean, in August when we actually make the hires. So we're happy to be where we are. I want to thank FA for her work in Kala. In the absence of a current HR director, we've been all acting as HR director, and the work that we've been trying to do with Teachers Lounge and BP Boston Plan for Excellence and in the training as well. So we think we're in a good spot. So you could have a business person by next week, a tech person by next week, a human resources person by the following week, and an assistant director of SPED by the following week. So by June 1st, you could have those 4 major positions hired.
That's great.
That's great. John, are you the decider on all of the hires that are director and assistant director level? And then when are you thinking about having, do you have target start dates for, I'm thinking about the HR director, the finance director? Is it sort of like they can start when they're available, or is this like a
July 1
July
start.
1 or after? Okay.
And for the director of finance position, Katie and I have already met. We're balancing Katie's time in the district with her her task that she's taking very seriously and professionally to get everything set. So 26 is close outable, even though you don't really close it out until July. It should be a very clear roadmap, and working on the budget for FY27 to be very clean and orderly so that person can just jump in and know exactly where all the money is and what's it targeted for. And we're identifying 2 days in June, I think June 23 and 24, where Katie will dedicate those 2 days to whoever is being brought on. We'll ask them to take some 2 days off and be in the district 2 days to just sit and go through all that work with her so we can really, and then, we're working and talking about is there any need to have Katie on some sort of a retainer so we can call her at a certain time over the course of July and August and September. She's open to help any way we would like her to do. She's very professional like that, but we also want to formalize it. And I'm also respectful of the fact that once you leave a district, you think you're gonna want to come back and help, and then all of a sudden you look at what you're getting and you're like, oh my God, I need the help, and you're asking me for help over here. So we're trying to balance that. Katie will do whatever it takes to make the transition work, and we appreciate her professionalism on that.
Any other questions on the hiring update? We will keep it moving. Up next is for the superintendent's report, right?
You know what, I'm gonna defer. I had some really nice stories about what's going on in STEM. I had some really nice stories about the high school scholastic night last week. Freshmen through seniors on stage, amazing night. Really not rooted in, everybody there is the highest grade point average person. Wildcat of the week, Wildcat of the month, book awards, National Honor Society, just a great night for Milton High to be celebrating kids that are achieving and motivated in good school. Students that represent just all that's good about Milton High, and it's not all the highest grade point average stuff. It was just a wonderful night. Karen did a great job, and we had a great trip. The Washington DC trip called in today. Bill had a picture of all these students sitting with 2 Vietnam veterans outside the memorial, just talking, just really, really amazing, heartfelt. We had a group of STEM students who just went to Fenway Park 2 weeks ago for the egg drop out at the MWR, at the plant out in Rhode Island this week, trying to really make sure that we're engaging students in that work. And the end of the year, grade 12 work that our student presented tonight of all the dates that are coming up that are really exciting for our seniors. So that's just without reading it all and boring you at 10 o'clock at night. There's a lot of good, and we have at the elementary schools, we have all of our field days. We have our case screenings happening right now. The middle school has just finished the Quebec trip and now has a DC trip. Step up day number 1 was today at the middle school. Step up day number 2 is tomorrow. Great transition work there. And we just got some funding for the buses that'll have the 8th graders coming up to the high school later in June when the seniors leave. So a lot of good transition pieces, a lot of good things happening, very busy district. And your principals are amazing. So when you see a principal, say thank you. They're just great folks. They're really working hard along with the teachers.
Thank you, John. We're gonna move it along. Finance Subcommittee, we haven't met, but have some vendor warrants just to let you know. Vendor warrant 44 dated 5/7/26, amount of $280,828.87 was signed, and vendor warrant 45 dated 5/14/26, in the amount of $460,586.96 was signed. We have vendor warrant 46 right here. I'm gonna leave that to the new finance committee chairs. That is it for the finance update. So there's anything else people really wanna do, we're gonna keep going. I know you'll really miss Amanda right now, cause she got us out of here at 9. She'll be more efficient than me. Negotiation update?
Yeah, just really quickly, I think negotiations continue to go well. Since the last update, we have participated in several negotiation sessions, most recently this past Monday, the 18th. We have continued through these meetings, just moving closer towards agreements on priorities for each team. Both language in the contract as well as the economic package, which is currently being discussed. We have meetings, next 2 negotiation sessions are scheduled for next week, May 26th, and the following week, June 1st. So I do think, I haven't run this by you, but I think it would make sense probably to have an executive session at the June 3rd meeting where we can share with you in more detail what, by then, hopefully we will be very close to some agreements to be able to share and discuss. So
I would only say that across the state, we're seeing a lot of districts and unions have friction in their work together to try to come to consensus. This has been one of the most productive and professional negotiations that I think I've ever encountered in my previous time in Milton and my time in Belmont. Just want to thank the MEA for their ability to listen and respond and partner and meet in the middle in places. And also the school committee that we have to do the same. It's been really, I think it's been very productive, and we did start late because they needed some time and to be able to be finished in June of that year with all the time that we had to miss for very good reasons. I think it's remarkable in this day and age where some people are doing it for 2 years. and we'll be doing it for about 6 months. And I think it's really, it speaks to the good culture that's being played out in our schools right now.
Thank you very much. School building committee update, very short. Still working on 2 paths. We have a committee established to try and go through for the OPM selection. We've kind of talked about that before. So they're doing posting and then going to review the submissions. So that through the MSBA process is still moving forward. And then we did talk about La Brea at the school building committee and made a motion to ask Sean to move forward with trying to secure an architect to look at the site. So he is working on finding one. So we think thinks he has a kind of beat on one, and so those kind of both the scopes of work we're working on for school building. No questions on that. We'll jump to approval of minutes. See if we can get out of here by 10. Any edits, comments on minutes, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the April 29th school committee meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
Second?
I give it to Anna, just to keep up, make me lose this time. All right, all in favor? It's unanimous. Next meeting agenda items, what are we covering at the next meeting? So we got.
So we will have a preview of our year 2 goals that we have with the initial goals for next year with the leadership team that will be represented by Colin and I's work with them. We will also go over round 2 of La Brea. We will have an executive session to give you an update on the negotiations. We will have a policy meeting between now and then. We'll have a facilities meeting between now and then. I think that might be it.
Finance, anything else?
It's update by then, yeah.
Right, if anything else comes up, please email at the agenda setting meeting here in about a week. Any other final things?
No, thank you, everybody. So it's a hard time of year to be together this late, but thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Then I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Great, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Adjourn 9:59.
Did it.
Thank you all.